Okay, so Be'ezras Hashem, we are continuing with our shirim on the HaChochma's biur on the Maisim of Rabba Bar Chana in Maseches Bava Basra, Ayin Gimel and Ayin Daled, and going through the Rebbe's teachings on these wondrous ma'amarim about the transition between the land and the sea will help us find footing within the sea when it feels that the land is kind of slipping away. So the second mimer reads as follows, and it's titled Ben Gala Lagala, between each wave. Amar Rabba, Rabba Bar Chana says, Ishtoli nechuseyama, that the wayfarers of the sea, those tzaddikim who know the hidden pathways between dry land of revealed reality and the sea of concealed reality, they showed me that Ben Gala Lagala plus mea parseh, that the distance between one wave and another is 300 parseh. Viroima de Gala plus mea parseh, and the height of the wave when it comes is also 300 parseh. Zimnechada, once upon a time, have azlinan be'orcha, v'dalinan gala al dechazinan be merba'asa de kochvaya zuta. That once upon a time we were traveling and a wave came along and raised us up so high up that it brought us face to face with the base of a small star. V'havele kimivatzer arbayin grive barza de chardala, and the space that that small star took up in my eyes was the space needed to spread out 40 measure of mustard seed. V'i dalinan tvei have maklinan mehavlaya. But if that wave had raised us any higher, then we would have been scorched and burned by the illumination and the heat of the star. Viramila gala kala, and another wave came along and raised its voice, lechaverta, to this other wave. Chavirte shavkat mide ba'alma deloy shavtia denise ana v'na'avdea. My friend, have you left anything in this world that you have not destroyed, so that there's something that I can come and destroy? Amarle puk chazi gvurte damarich. The wave responded to the other wave, come and see the strength of your creator, where even when there's the slightest edge of sand, I can't pass over it. Shana Emar, the pasuk says, Ha'oisi loy tira'u, are you not going to fear me? Nu'um Hashem, the power of Hashem. Imipnei loy tachilu asher samti choil gvul yam choik oilam v'lo ya'avrenu. How could you not fear me? I have placed a limit to the sea itself, implying that the wave cannot break free the confines, no matter how thin they are, no matter how delicate they are. If HaKadosh Baruch Hu sets up a confine that blocks out that wave, it's not going to break free. That is the Gemara. And now we're going to see the Rebbe is going to bring us into the depth of this statement. So the Rebbe is going to start off with an interesting conversation about the Ost Tzadi. When it comes to the Ost Tzadi, which is representative of the Tzadik, which is representative of Geula, we're going to see that there are different shitos in terms of how the Ost Tzadi should be properly written. There's a shita that we don't see an Ost Tzadi like this in reality. There's the shita of the Beis Yosef that we paskin like, and then there's going to be the shita of the Arizal. This is an idea that the Chazon Ish brought down in Orach Chaim Sof Siman Test. There was a sefer written on the Ost Tzadi. The Rebbe has an arichos on it when it comes to Ost Tzadi and the biurim on the osios from the HaChochma. The Vilna Gaon brings it down in the beginning of Tzafir Disnusa as well. This Ost Tzadi. So Amar Rava Ishtoli Nechusayama ben Gala Gala plus mea parsa Vruma the Gala plus mea parsa. Right. So the distance between the waves is 300 parsos, and the height of the wave is 300 parsos. Yivur behektam kushis hachazon ish zecher tzadik lebracha. First and foremost, let's go through the issue that the Chazon Ish brings with regards to the tzura of the Ost Tzadi, with regards to the shape of the Ost Tzadi. Dihine muva behakdamas hazar. It's explicit in the introduction of the Zohar Kadosh with regards to the osios when they came in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to be used in order to create the world, as well as the Meforshim on the Zohar. Sheish beis havchanos b'Ost Tzadi. There are two ways of looking at the Ost Tzadi, or better stated, the Ost Tzadi represents two stages of spiritual reality. In the moment that the Ost Tzadi, like all of the other letters, came in front of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol and asked that the world be created with the Ost Tzadi, and the Tzadi at that point was still in a state of Shvira, and it was still operating a state of disorientation and dysfunction. Haya bebechinas achor ba'achor. The relationship of the nun that makes up the main part of the tzadi and the yud, which represents the right side or the back of the tzadi, was achor ba'achor, meaning to say that the yud on top of the tzadi turned its face backwards away from the bent nun that creates the body of the tzadi. So the tzadi is on the left side is the bent nun, and the nun was facing towards its own side, and the yud on the back, instead of facing the bent nun, it was turned away from it. The yud on the top of the tzadi was turned backwards, and that is the bechina of achor ba'achor, where the yud and the nun are separate from one another, both of each other's backs facing the other's back, a relationship of achor ba'achor, which represents an immature relationship of dependency, representative of the stage of shviras hakelim. V'hainu, what does that mean? Shahayud she'al hatzadi hafcha paneha mehakfifa shebe'ois tzadi shenira kamo nun akuma. That the yud on the back of the tzadi turned its face away from the nun that bends over in the beginning of the tzadi, and they're facing away from each other. And this is very similar to the os tzadi of the ksav, the arizal, where the yud is turned backwards, representative of an immature, unhealthy relationship of ach ba'ach, or seemingly unhealthy. Va'achar kach, and only afterwards, b'shas hatikun, nihisa hatzadi bebechinas panim bepanim. Only afterwards does the tzadi become panim bepanim, where the nun itself turns its head and the yud itself turns its head back. And we don't have a tzadi that's written like this, but the Zohar implies that there's the ach ba'ach of the tzadi, where the yud is turned away from the nun, and then there's the panim bepanim, where the nun turns towards the yud, and both parts are facing one another. And we don't have an os tzadi like that. And then the Chazon Ish asks the question, V'shoyel HaChazon Ish, l'chayra ois tzadi d'ksava beis Yosef shubechinas panim ba'achor, that the pnei of the yud faces the back of the nun, eino lo kamo beis havchana sheba'olamas ha'elyonim. The Chazon Ish says the nun and the yud and the relationship of the tzadi of the beis Yosef that we paskin like doesn't seem to operate in accordance with the status of the worlds that we're operating either in the face-to-face or the back-to-back relationship. And from here it seems, from the fact that the Beis Yosef's tzadi is different than the tzadi explained in the Zohar Kadosh. So the Chazon Ish wanted to point out that from here it seems that the osios and the ksav of the Beis Yosef doesn't go necessarily in according to the oilamos ha'elyonim. So we have these three tzadis. Two of them we're grappling with, and one of them is idealized and referred to in the Zohar HaKadosh. The first stage of ach ba'ach is where the nun of the tzadi is facing this way, and the yud of the tzadi is facing the other way, representative of an immature relationship that is back-to-back without any real development. Then, in the state of tikkun, you have where the nun turns its head and the yud turns its head, and they face each other, and that's the secret of panim bepanim, where both things are facing each other. And while that represents the idealized level of panim bepanim, nevertheless, we don't have an expression of that in our aleph beis. We don't see a tzadi written like that, where both the face of the nun and the yud are facing each other. And what the Chazon Ish points out is that what we have with the Beis Yosef is neither this or that. It's neither the back-to-back or the face-to-face, because what we have with the ksav of the Beis Yosef is the regular tzadi. We have the nun of the tzadi, which is bent with its face facing forwards, and the yud is turned towards the back of the tzadi. So we have a panim ba'achor. We're no longer dealing with achor ba'achor. It's not the back of the yud facing the back of the nun. It's not panim ba'panim, the face of the yud facing the face of the nun, but rather it is panim ba'achor. The face of the yud is turned and facing the back of the nun kefufa, which creates the other side of the tzadi. And the Chazon Ish points out that this ksav of the Beis Yosef, where it's really a relationship of panim ba'achor, where it's the panim of the yud facing the back of the nun, that it doesn't seem to express itself within the upper realms that we've been discussing. So the Rebbe now is going to first and foremost explain why it is that it's not a kasha, and the Rebbe spends a lot of time describing this elsewhere in Ois Tzadi and the Biurim and the Osios. But the Rebbe is going to point out that in truth, there's four different relationships between the masculine and the feminine. There's four different relationships between the yud and the nun, which create the tzadi, between the duchra, the masculine expressivity, which is the first stage, and the feminine receptivity, which is the second stage. And while it seems that what the Chazon Ish is pointing out is that really there's only the states of panim b'panim or ach ba'ach, and the letters that we have in the Beis Yosef doesn't seem to represent any of those stages, the Rebbe is going to point out how in truth, when we look at the particularity of the relationship process, in fact, it's really two stages of panim b'panim and ach ba'ach that are really going to be revealed to contain four within them. And within that category of four positions, so there is going to be a place for the os tzadi of the Beis Yosef, which is panim ba'achor, zakt the Heilige Rebbe. Hine yesh makom lataritz et kushas HaChazon Ish. there's room to answer up the kasha of the Chazon Ish with regards to the Ksav of the Beis Yosef, based on what's explicitly written in the writings of the Arizal and brought down in the Chazdei David in the end of Eitz Chaim in Ois Kuf Yud Dalid, and it's brought there. Sheyesh Dalid Sidarim Baza V'nuk. There are actually four stages of the relationship between the masculine expression of Zer Anpin, which is Kudsha Berichu, and the feminine receptivity of the Nukva, which is Shchina. And that it's not only two stages of relationship, but rather it's four. First and foremost, we have the Ach Ba'ach, where both sides are facing each other's backs, and there's a complete immature dependency on one another without any semblance of an authentic relationship. Then you can have a state of Achor B'panim, where the Achor of the Yud is facing the Panim of the Nuk. Then you have the Panim Ba'ach, where the Panim of the Yud is facing the back of the Nuk. And then you have Panim al Panim. So we see that there's really four gradations. There's Ach Ba'ach, there's Ach B'panim, there's Panim Ba'ach, and there's Panim B'panim. And it turns out that this Darga of Panim Ba'ach, which is the Darga of the Os Tzadi of the Beis Yosef, where the Yud is turned its Panim towards the Ach of the Nun, that's the third level prior to the fundamental level of panim b'panim. It goes ach ba'ach, which is the first stage of immaturity, then ach b'panim, which is the secondary stage of immaturity, then panim ba'ach, which is the third stage, that is the stage prior to the full rectification, and then panim b'panim. So it turns out that the kashi of the Chazon Ish, which is that the Beis Yosef Tzadi, which is the panim of the Yud facing the back of the ach, doesn't seem to have a representation in the Oilamos. The Rebbe is pointing out that in truth it represents the third out of four stages, which represent the stage right before the final rectification. Sha'az, it represents the element of panim ba'ach, which isn't a bechina of before the tikkun, which is just ach ba'ach. It's not like things were when they were completely separate. Ela matziv hakar v'la tikkun, the os that's being reflected in the Beis Yosef represents the stage prior to the rectification, where yes, there's separation, yes, there's distortion, but nevertheless, it's the panim of the yud facing the back of the nun, and that represents the stage right before the tikkun. And that's why we write the tzadi like the matziv of the Beis Yosef, which is panim ba'ach, which is the stage right before the final rectification and the final redemption. But the Zohar HaKadosh refers to this status of the tzadi as achor ba'achor. And so how can we say that we're operating with a tzadi that's really panim ba'achor, which is a shlav closer to geula? Yesh Lomar, says the Rebbe, Shakol Matziv Dufnei Atikun Nikra Be'erchen Bechinas Ach Ba'ach L'umas HaMatziv Da'asa level. So the Rebbe is bringing a very big klal here, klal from the Rashash, that we have to look at the levels that we're discussing based on the relative positioning of the levels that we're discussing. The kasha of the Chazon Ish was that based on the status of the way that the tzadi is described in the Sefer HaZohar, the tzadi of the Beis Yosef does not seem to have any place, because it's either panim b'panim, where the yud is facing the nun of the tzadi, or it's ach ba'ach, where the yud is turned away and the nun is turned away. But this metzius of panim ba'ach, where the yud is turned towards the back of the nun, that doesn't seem to have expression. But we see, the Rebbe points out that no, it has expression in the third, next to the final stage, where things are beginning to be rectified and things are beginning to turn back to the face-to-face authentic encounter, but it's not yet at that point. We see that the Zohar HaKadosh refers to this stage as achor ba'achor, as a stage of complete dependency and immaturity. So how could the Rebbe be saying that in truth this is the stage right before redemption? So it must be that in relationship to the true panim b'panim level, which is not yet revealed, which is that os tzadi of the yud and the nun facing each other, which we don't have an expression of in this world, in relationship to that level, any level that has not yet reached that level is still going to be considered on a certain level as being still in an achor relationship, even though it's still relatively closer in the secret of panim ba'achor. That's the os tzadi of the Beis Yosef. And now the Rebbe is going to ask us a kasha as to why it is that we're going to see the realm of tikkun as expressed in an immature way. Ikar mashet tzarich biur, says the Rebbe. The main thing that needs biur, once we've described the reality of this os tzadi, the main thing that needs clarification is that it turns out that the tzura of the os tzadi, the ha'arizal, who hatzura she haisa lifnei hatikun, zeh davar shetzarich biur, that it turns out that the tzura of the tzadi of the arizal, which is where the yud turns away from the nun, which is really an achor ba'achor type of relationship, that tzadi of the Arizal, which is not the tzadi of the Beis Yosef. The tzadi of the Beis Yosef, the yud on the back of the nun, turns its face towards the nun, which is the tzura that we have, the panim ba'ach. But the tzura of the Arizal's tzadi is where the yud turns away, so it's ach ba'ach, it's an even lower level. And that's what the Rebbe is asking Kasha on. How could it be that on the revealed level of halacha psuka, we have an os that is of a higher level of a relationship, where it's a panim ba'ach, which is the os of the Beis Yosef. When it comes to the Arizal, we see an ach ba'ach, but isn't the Arizal speaking in the world of Panemius, and shouldn't Panemius be always revealing the deeper inherent connection that exists between the separate parts and not focusing on the separation? So how could it be? So what we have to understand is that according to what we've said so far, Yotze, it turns out that the tzura of the Tzadi of the Arizal, which is the tzura of Ach Ba'ach, which is the tzura that operated prior to the rectifications of the world, that's what we need to understand. Madua l'ksav haBeis Yosef oisim ha'ois tzadi b'bechinas panim ba'ach. Why is it that when we look at the ksav of the Beis Yosef, which is halacha psuka, we see the third out of 4 levels of the panim of the yud facing the ach, which is a lofty level, shuba matzav echad karuv el tikun, which represents a stage right before the tikun, umitzara kabbalah, but from the side of perspective of pinimius haTorah b'ksav ha'arizal oisem ha'os tzadi b'bechinas ach ba'ach, we create the os tzadi in the secret of ach ba'ach, where it seems to be deficient and devoid, even lower than the osios of the Beis Yosef. Sheba b'chinas hashvira ha'gemura, the osios of the arizal represents an os of ach ba'ach, where there seems to be complete separation between the reception and the giving, or the giving and the receiving, and it seems to be broken, and it seems to not be working anymore. How could this be that in Panemius we're going to see the breakdown of the relationship, when in Nigla we're going to see the development of the relationship? Don't we know that Kabbalah and Panemius Torah are always coming to reveal an interior level, a level of interiority, a level of connectivity, a level of yichud that is not found in Niglos HaTorah, but over here we see that Niglos HaTorah are revealing a level of connectivity that is higher than the level of what Panemius HaTorah is revealing. Okay, so this is where the Rebbe is going to bring us into the depth of the inyan, because what the Rebbe is about to show to us is that based on the kasha of why would it be that on the level of Panemius, on the level of the Arizal, we see that the Tzadi represents an ach ba'ach relationship, representative of distance and concealment and a lack of connectivity, while the Beis Yosef is revealing a far more comprehensive and rooted functional relationship of panim ba'ach. How could it be if Panemius HaTorah is meant to reveal the inner quality of unity? And what the Rebbe is going to reveal is that at the depth of Panemius HaTorah, the Pneumius of the Pneumius, with the Nechusay Yam, when we go down into the Pneumius of the Yam HaChochma, to Megala, the Pneumius of Chochma, which is the Pneumius of Atik, that's Megala Zayin, and the fact that everything is always okay. So in that place, we're going to see that the higher the light of the unity, the more we can tolerate separation. The more separation is not frightening. The more separation no longer creates this notion that, oh my gosh, something is going to fall apart, because rooted in the lens of Pneumius, seen through the lens of the Nechusay Yama, who go down into the Yam HaChochma, the separation is also revelatory of a unity, as we see in the Binyan HaPartzufim in the world of Atik, as the Rebbe describes as well, that from the lens of unity, we're going to see that all separation is only there to illuminate the process of the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that the darkness is also a fundamental expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that the Bina is also a fundamental expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So from the realm of Panemius, in the world of the Arizal, we can tolerate the ach ba'ach relationship. We can tolerate the yud turning its head away from the nun, because in that place we know that all separation is indicative of a deeper unity that's emerging between Chachma and Bina, between the apparent presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and the apparent distance of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. It's only in the world of Nigla where we have to be very susceptible, where we have to be very concerned about what it would mean to face concealment and grapple with that idea, that we have to ensure that the system is built in a very clear and clarified way, because any disorientation or any separation at that place is going to be overwhelming. So in the world of the Beis Yosef, in the world of Nigla, where we have to be very careful about the distinction between light and darkness, so there we see that we develop a relationship based on closeness, because closeness and proximity is always going to be the mark of spiritual growth. But in the realm of Panemius, where we come to realize that Einoin Milvado and Lamala and Lamata, the Choshech and the Or, the Chachma and the Bina, all of them bespeak the glory of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So in that place, with the confidence of the unifying grasp of all things, we make more room for the separations that abide within reality. And that's why we're going to see that the Rebbe is going to explain that according to the Arizal, in the realm of Pneumius, you can have an ach ba'ach relationship. You can have this severed relationship. You can have this thing that appears to be so broken, but nevertheless, it's still reflective of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And again, this all comes back to the place of Chachma and Bina. As we said, the entire sugyos of Rabba Bar Chana are the relationship and the connectivity and the inherent bond between Chachma and Bina. Chachma represents everything being okay. Bina represents things breaking apart. In the realm of Pnimius, in the world of the Arizal, Chachma and Bina are both fundamentally expressive of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and Memela, Chachma, which represents a panim b'panim, or Bina, which represents an ach ba'ach, both of them are going to be seen as fundamental in expressing the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So Zakta Helegarebe in Oistalid. Ukadei liyashiv zeh, in order to come to understand this problem, this theory that we find with regards to the Os Tzadi of the Beis Yosef and the Os Tzadi of the Arizal, so we're going to come to explain the Maimer of Rabba Bar Chana, and it's written in parentheses here that Kasha lahasbir kol hahekif v'nivayar rak haschala. It's very difficult to explain everything that needs to be expressed, but nevertheless we're going to begin, because this is the secret of Nechus Hayam, the Dai b'chakima b'remiza, that it's enough for the wise person to receive a hint, because the hint, it reveals to the individual everything that there is to know. So the Gemara says, Ishtoili nechusa yama ben gala gala tlas mea parsa v'ruma de gala tlas mea parsa. So the distance between the waves was 300 parsos, and the height of the wave was 300 parsos. Dihine b'shoyresh mitzad hagar hachi elyon b'chinas ha'oirech, which is the aspect of Chochma, that is Yorid me lamata lamata, me lamala lamata b'chinas oirech, as well as the Roichev, which is the aspect of Bina, shemis pasheses el Roichev, shnehem shavim. That when it comes to Pnimius, when it comes to the highest level of Gar, when it comes to the highest moichin of Keser Elyon Olav Nikra, where Ani and Ayin are operating at once, what's revealed that Chachma and Bina both play an equal role in revealing the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Generally speaking, Chachma is higher than Bina, Bina is lower than Chachma. Bina represents Yesh, Chachma represents Ayin, Chachma is light, Bina is darkness. And in those places, everything is unified. In the highest, loftiest light of Keser, everything is unified. The oirech, the length of something, the height of something, which is the height of the wave, that's the aspect of Chachma that descends down from above to below. That's the height. And the roichev, which is the width of something, which represents Bina and its expansion towards the horizontal directionality, that represents the roichev. Shneim shavim. We see in the Gemara, it says that in between each wave, which is the roichev, the distance and the width between each wave is 300 parsaos, and the height of each wave, which is the chachma, is also 300 parsaos. This represents the fact that at this lofty place of Keser, both chachma, the oirich, and Bina, the roichev, the way an idea expresses itself from above to below, how the information processes itself downwards, the basic idea itself, that's Chachma. It comes down from above and reveals itself below. And Bina is the ability to open up the idea, to apply Mishalim, to be Maven Davar Mitoch Davar, to find further applications to the same idea based on the first principles that are expressed within it. It's the secondary principles that are emergent out of it. That's the that's the length of something, that's the width of something, that's the roichiv of something. But in the realm of Keser, both the length of Chachma and the width of the idea of Bina, and all of this is explained fundamentally in the writings of the Mittler Rebbe, and especially in Shah Yichud with the Bira of Rav Hillel Paracher, where he goes through each and every one of these orientations of thought. But at this place, the height of Chachma and the width of Bina are both equal, v'imkein, and therefore, b'shayresh ha'elyon, in the loftiest place, at that place of Keser, where Ani and Ayin meet together, where Chochma and Bina meet together, where clarity and revelation and concealment meet together, in this lofty place of the bittul of the Darg of Keser, where both Chochma and Bina, the Ayin and the Ani, are both fundamentally revealed to be of equal footing. So over there, they have to both be revealed in the same potency. They have to be revealed in the same measure. Ukamokan, like we see here, Shasipru de that just like we see in our story with those wayfarers who descend down into the depths of the sea, they descend down into the depths of understanding, into the depths of concealment of the Yam HaElyon, that in between each wave, which is the element of the width of Bina, it's 300, as well as the Roime de Gala, which is the Bechina of the Oirech, which is the Bechina of the height of the wave, is both of them are equal. The Chachma and the Bina are equal. Sheshnehem Gimel Meos Parsa. Both of them represent Gimel Meos Parsa. We see see that Chochma and Bina, the general principle of clarity and the concealed details and particularization of Bina, both of them are equal. And not only that, but in the place of Keser, where both Chochma and Bina, the height and the width, the general quality of Chochma and the particularization of Bina, when both of them are revealed to be reflecting the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we give precedence to Bina, because Bina in its separation has the ability to further the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. The Bina is yoiter behiskalus. It's more revealed. As we know, Bina is perpetually revealing itself, and Chochma is always in a state of shtika. So when we're in a place of the equality between Chochma and Bina, between the height of Chochma, where the idea is drawn down from above, down below, and the roichev of Bina, where the idea is expanded upon and opened up through our own processing and through our own hisboinenus, in that place, the Bina takes precedence over Chochma. Ve'im kem hegdimu hanechusayama bin gala legala shekeneged habina lefnei roima de gala shekeneged Chochma. And for this reason, the Nechusayama, the Rebbe says, are describing this level of Keser Elyon Olav Nikra, this gar, the Keser of the Gimel in that place where Chochma and Bina, the Eirich and the Roichiv, are of equal positioning, where both represent themselves in the 300 parsos. So in this place, when there's an equality between Chochma and Bina, we're operating in the place where even concealment is indicative of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and we don't fall prey to that sense of concealment. So in that place, we can give precedence to the expression of concealment, because we know that it's an expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and in that place, the Bina takes precedence, and that's why the Nechusayama gave the description of the width between the waves, which are the 300 parsaos of Bina, prior to expressing the 300 meters in which the wave extends, which is Chachma. Zakta Heilige Rebbe. Va'amnan, and this is in Osvav. In truth, this conversation about Chachma and Bina, about the length of Chachma, which represents the clarified quality of an idea being transferred down from above without any questioning as to what its essence means, and the expansion of an idea by way of the hisrachvus, by way of the widening of it, by applying it to different mishalim and different things, this clarification and this concealment, this illumination and this darkening, this is in truth the fundamental relationship at the heart of all of Pnimiyas Torah, at the heart of all of Metzias. Like we said, it's the relationship between Chachma and Bina, and the fundamental relationship between the two of them. We can't look at this with one fell swoop and say that this is the general rule that applies to every process, because we're going to find there are many, many stiros when it comes to processing this. The Chol Torah benuya al zeh, and in truth, the entirety of the Torah is built upon this relationship, this conversation between Chachma and Bina, between the clarified height of something, the length of something, and the confusing width of something. And in truth, says the Rebbe, the machlokas between Chachma and Bina, between the Eirich and the Roichiv, and the unification between the two of them at the loftiest place of Keser, is the basic description of what Pnimiyas Torah is coming to convey to a person. It's what Pnimiyas Torah is coming to illuminate in a person's life. Ulevayar ktsas, and in order to explain a little bit of this, Sherish ha'inyan zeh yesh lahakdim, we have to introduce an idea. Hine yesh inyan amuk ha'im hatachlis hu lahagia el ha'or o el ha'choshech. There's a big question that is asked already by Chazal, and the Lesha makes a big asek out of this, and the Ramak makes a big asek, and all of the tzaddikim make a big asek out of this, is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw light and darkness. HaKadosh Baruch Hu saw the actions of the tzaddikim and the actions of the Rishayim, and it wasn't clear which one he wanted to choose, until he chose the Arlokim as Ha'or Ki Tov, and he chose good. But there's a Havamina, where from the perspective of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's outlook, the difference between good and bad, clarity and darkness, is not so thick, but rather everything is reflective of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And Mamela, the need for us to separate between light and darkness, which applies in accordance to our human logic of our Das Tachton, on the level of Das Elyon, there's a Havamina where there's an equality between Choshech and Or. And in truth, Choshech might even be revealed to be something higher than the light, because Choshech represents the impossibility of grasp, while light implies the possibility of grasp. So the question is, there's a deep question that what is the purpose? Is the purpose in Avodas Hashem, is the purpose in life to come to a place of light, or to come to a place of darkness, to come to a place of knowledge, or to come to a place of not knowing? V'hainu, says the Rebbe, d'mitzad echad bepashtus ha'or gavoya b'mala me'achoshech. From the first perspective, obviously light is much higher than darkness, because light and all of the synonyms of light represent one thing, and darkness and all of the synonyms of darkness represent something else. Ach me'idach, but from another perspective, lifnei kol madrega shel gilui or yesh tzimtzum. Prior to any revelation of light, there is a tzimtzum, there is a concealment that precedes it, and the kalim were formed prior to the light's being revealed. And we see that choshech precedes light, and that the kelim themselves are built from a more primary substance, so to speak, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing than the light itself. So there's an implication that the bechina of choshech lefanav, that there's an aspect of choshech lefanav that precedes light. Ve'im kein hatzimtzum hu hachoshech hakodim l'or. And then we have to say that the tzimtzum, this constriction prior to revelation, is in truth the darkness that precedes the light. And when we see something preceding something in order, the implication is that that implies a certain precedence in value as well. V'harei kol kedima moyer elamala. And if the darkness is preceding the light, well, the implication is that the darkness is of a higher value than the light. Then we see that there's an elevated status to the concealment and the darkness of the tzimtzum that rests above the revelation and the light. Ubazeh, says the Rabba, gam tali hachakira mahu hachoshech, and really this is one and the same with the chakira, the machlokas, as to what the essence of darkness is. And the Gra brings us down, and the Meforshim talk about this by Maisa Bereshis, is darkness just the absence of light, which would imply that it's something lower than light itself, which means that ha'or me'al ha'choshech, light is above darkness. Or perhaps is the darkness a revelation as well? And if the darkness is a revelation, and if the tzimtzum is a revelation and creation of its own, then maybe it's specifically mitoich ha'choshech meskala achakach ha'or. Maybe it's a condition in darkness itself, that the precedence of darkness is what enables us to come to light afterwards. So the Rebbe is pointing out the machlokes as to what is higher, darkness or light, hasaga or non-hasaga, coming to a place of knowing or not knowing. Ubamila macheros, in other words, says the Rebbe, hachakira hi, what is the question that we're asking here? Ha'im hatachlisu advekas b'Hashem yisparach al yedei hasagas ha'chochma ha'elikis shu b'chinas hasagas ha'or ha'eliki? Is the tachlis of Bria to be a person who's mistavik to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the grasp of wisdom and divine wisdom, which gives me an element of a grasping of the godly light and a sense of grasp? Or am I meant to enter into that place of choshech, and the implication being running up to a place that is so profoundly illuminated that it blinds me, and it is expressed only by way of concealment, which is the choshech elyon, which is the sense that the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is so lofty that I can't even grasp it, which is referred to as the ayin of Keser, in this place where Chachma comes from and Bina comes from. And this is the element of Choshech she'eno musag ve'eno ma'ir. This is the element of darkness that cannot be grasped and cannot illuminate. And this level of dveikus, which represents the dveikus of darkness, where it doesn't need anything because it's not able to grasp anything, because it's not capable of defining that which can't be defined, because the thing that it's trying to bring down into itself is so lofty, so the only way that it can be revealed is going to be by way of darkness. So we see that there is a machlokes at the heart of Metzias as to what the tachlis hadavarim is. Is the tachlis to connect by way of graspability, to connect in a way of bittul and chachma, where it's or, where it's megula, where there's revelation and everything is okay? Or is there a level of being mekusher to HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of choshech, by way of bina, by way of the yagia, to try and understand that which can't be understood, and in spite of that to continuously yearn, which brings a person face to face with the tzachtzachos nafshecha, with the secret of arimas yada b'tzlusa, which is the secret of not being able to grasp something. It's the ability to be mistavik to HaKadosh Baruch Hu above the or. And the Rebbe is now going to say that this is the machlokas really between Chachma and Bina, and it's also going to be the machlokas between Yosef HaTzadik and the Shvatim, which is going to be the machlokas between Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. V'ine bechakiru machlokas zu. When it comes to this machlokas and this chakira, nechleku Yehuda v'Hashvatim al Yosef HaTzadik. This was the machlokas between Yehuda, Mashiach ben David, and the rest of the Shvatim on Yosef HaTzadik, on the Darg of Yosef. The Yosef HaTzadik, who's the Bechina of the Hasaga of the Or of Chachma, he wants everything to be refined, he wants everything to be good, he wants everything to be clarified, like Yosef HaTzadik wants everything to be clarified. And the Targum says on the Pasuk that Yosef HaTzadik was a Ben Zekunim, which means that he was Koine Chachma, Ari ben Chachma, he had that ability of Chachma and clarification, and Or, he carried that light. Tan Shekulam Sricham Leshtachavais Lo Yilakabel Me'or Yosef HaTzadik's darga, Yosef HaTzadik's darga of Mashiach ben Yosef is the recognition that I carry the light, I have the chachma, and the dream is that everything will come and serve chachma. Everything works towards the goal of grasping HaKadosh Baruch Hu by way of the revelation of chachma. But the Shvatim, himlichu aleim as Yehuda, but the Shvatim created Yehuda as the king, and Yehuda is the shorish of Malchus Beis David, which is rooted in Bina. That's the aspect of Haida'ah, of gratitude and bittul and self-nullification, Lamala me hasaga, ulamala me tamvadas, above and beyond any graspability, above and beyond any reasonability or capacity of knowing what, but rather it's oile ad ha-keser, it goes all the way up to Keser, because it's that place of Choshech. That's the darga of Mashiach ben David, who's able to find light in the darkness itself. V'ta'anu hashvatim, and what the Shvatim claimed is that the Indian of bittul v'haida'a di Yehuda, that the level of self-nullification, which is bittul ba'etzem and not grasping anything, and the element of choshech and the element of bina and concealment, is above and beyond that which is hasaga, which is the element of Yosef Atzadik. That Ta'anu Ashvatim, the Shvatim claim, She'inyan bittul v'haidah di Yehuda, this darga of not knowing, this darga of darkness, and the aspect of lamala me hasaga, which is the aspect of darkness, is higher than the light of Yosef Atzadik, who's the level of Bina, who's the level of hasaga. V'adir Rabba, Yosef Atzadik tzarich lisbatel aleihem. They felt that Yosef Atzadik, who was the element of chachma and knowledge and yediyah, had to be mevatel to the darga of choshech and Bina, because it's specifically through there that a person is going to come to reveal the light of Keser, like we saw that the Nechusayama brought out the measurement of the width between the waves of Bina prior to expressing the height of the waves, which is Chachma. B'hainu, shenechleku im hatachlis lahagia ad hachachma. The argument was whether it was the tzad of Yosef who said that they should come to be the experience the bittul of Chachma, which is or, which is hasaga, which is the height of the waves, o lahagia ad hakeser, or whether they should go through the darkness of Bina, which is the bittul of hasaga, which is not grasping anything at all, which is going to be the element of choshech, which is going to be the element of the width between the waves. And we're going to see that this machlokas in Chazal is expressed as well. V'yesh leimer, the machlokas and nechluku Chazal, this machlokas between Chachma and Bina, graspability and ungraspability, light and darkness, Chachma and Bina is a machlokas at the heart of the Gemara in Kedushin on Daf Mem on the base as well, when we discuss whether the maisa of the mitzvah is higher than learning the Torah behind the mitzvah. The Maisa of the mitzvah is without Hasaga. The Maisa of the mitzvah is the Bechina Mashiach ben David. It's the Bechina of Oilam Ha'asiyah, where there's only concealment, or a person doesn't have a grasp. A person can't come to understand the true essence of the act itself, that a person can't come to express the true illumination of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and in the Maisa of the mitzvah, it brings with it a real bittul muchletes. That's the darga of Bina. That's lamala mitam v'das. But limud Torah is an element of Chachma. It's the process of knowing. It's a process of coming to know things. That's the element of Yosef Atzadik. That's the element of Chachma. And it's clear that there's machlokas in Chazal as to what's more important. Is it the Maisa, which is the darga of Yehuda, which is the darga of Bina that leads to Keser, which is the darga of Choshech, which is the darga of not knowing, and that's the Bina, or is it going to be the Talmud Torah, which is the element of Yosef Atzadik, which is the or and the knowledge, that the bechina of hasagas or hatayra is the element of Yosef, and the element of Maisa Mitzvos, which is Lamala Hasaga, is the element of David. And even though Chazal themselves have proclaimed and paskin that learning Torah is higher than Maisa Mitzvah, implying that Yosef Atzadik is correct, in the end, they undo the hierarchy that they create when they say that the reason Torah learning is higher than Maisa Mitzvah is because Torah learning leads more to a Maisa Mitzvah. Again, highlighting the implication that even though light is higher than darkness, there might even be a darkness that is higher than the light. And so we see that the tachlis is ultimately the learning that brings about the limit. So we see again that the choshech is higher than the light, and the Rebbe says that in the end of the day, we see that the words of Chazal are theoretically contradicting one another, and therefore we have to try and develop a better understanding. So Zot the Heilige Rebbe. The Rebbe is going to bring us down into a place of the unification between these two ideas now. Hine Yadua Maimer Chazal, Bechol Gavna, that when Chazal have a machlokas, especially when it comes to these inyanim, that are oimdim beruma shel olam, so we have a klal gadol of elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim, that in the place of Keser, there's room for both Chachma and Bina. In the place of Keser, there's room for both Yehuda and Yosef. In the place of Keser, there's room for both Talmud Torah and Maisa Mitzvos. There's room for both Choshech and Or. It's elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. Hainu shabeis hadeyos heim emes. Both deos, both opinions, both understandings of what is more significant, the grasp by way of light or the grasp by way of darkness, the Chachma or the Bina, both are fundamentally really true. V'yesh bazeh biurim amukim, eich tzrichim beis hadeos le'esachid ke'echad, v'bechinas echad be'echad yigashu. And in truth, there's many, many deep ideas rooted in the necessity and the processing in which we unify these two ideas. As the pasuk says, this one will meet that one, and both will be revealed to have been fundamentally necessary. Shene'emar al Yehuda v'Yosef, which itself is described about Yehuda and Yosef, Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef, Chachma and Bina, in the aspect of the tachlis hayadiyah sheneda v'shaloneda ke'echad. That in truth, the tachlis is not to know and not to know. The tachlis is the tachlis hayediyah sheneda, that we should know in the aspect of Yosef HaTzadik, in the aspect of Chachma, in the aspect of Or, and shaloi neda in the aspect of Yehuda, in the aspect of Bina, in the aspect of Choshech, ke'echad, at the very same moment. It's not knowing and not knowing, or not knowing and then knowing, but it's knowing and not knowing at once. Ke'echad, in the aspect of the Keser, which is the Reisha, the Loas Yada, the unknowable head, HaKoil Beis HaVchanos, that contains both of these positions within them. Bechinas Beis HaMalachim HaMeshamshim B'Keser Echad, and the secret of the two kings who can utilize the same crown, and the secret of the Trei Ma'oris, the Shnei Ma'oris HaGadolim, the sun and the moon. The sun represents the illumination of Yosef HaTzadik and the Chachma of it all, and the moon represents the concealment of David Malka Mashiach and the Bina that leads to the Keser. Both of them are unified at the end in the Tikkun of La'asid Lavo. Ubebechinas the Makom Yesh Beroish Lebeis Tfilin Derashi V'Rabbeinu Tam. And a simon to this reality is that on the head, the tzaddikim have place for the tefillin of Rashi and for the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam. Rashi is the tefillin of Bina. It represents the avodah of not knowing, and Rabbeinu Tam represents the Torah and the tefillin of Chachma. And there's room on the head for both of them. Shebazeh misbateles hashe'ela mi barosh. And in the end, the secret of the tefillin of Rashi and the tefillin of Rabbeinu Tam, which is the yichud of Yosef and Yehuda, which is the yichud of Or and Choshech, this will come to answer up the kasha that Yeravim ben Nevat, who represents the secret of Mashiach ben Yosef, comes to ask HaKadosh Baruch Hu, when HaKadosh Baruch Hu says to Yeravim ben Nevat, the aspect of Mashiach ben Yosef, that come, let's be Matayal and Gan Eden together, me, you, and Ben Yishai, and Yeravim ben Nevat, Mashiach ben Yosef still asks, mi barosh, who's going to be in front? And HaKadosh Baruch Hu says it's going to be David Malka Mashiach Barosh, and Yeravim ben Nevat was unable to accept that answer. And it's Razin Amukim that the Rebbe spends a lot of time discussing elsewhere, especially in the Hakdamos to the HaChochmas. But over here, what we see is that the secret of the Tefillin Shel Rosh is that there's room for Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam. There's room for the Or and the Choshech. There's room for the Avodah of Mashiach ben Yosef, which is the Avodah of Chachma and knowledge. And there's room for the Avodah of Mashiach ben David, which is not knowing and Choshech. So this question of the ability to have Tefillin Shel Rosh and Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam on at the same time is the answer to the Mi Barosh of Yeravim ben Nevat, which is the problem that Mashiach ben Yosef has with accepting the precedency of Mashiach ben David in the secret of Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. Shari makom yesh berosh l'shneim. In truth, there's room for both of them at the head. Ubezeh as yishaper. And now we can understand the words of Chazal, shenimnu v'gamru, that they ultimately come to the place of realizing that Talmud Gadol Sha'al Yidei Talmud Yizku Lavoi Acher Kach Lemaisa, that we see that knowledge, Chachma, is more beneficial. The Avodah of Yosef HaTzadik is more beneficial because it will ultimately bring a person to the place of Maisa, to the place of the Avodah of Mashiach ben David. Ubazeh Shemeir B'toicha Maisa or HaTalmud, by drawing down the light of knowledge into action itself, drawing down the light of knowing into the act of not knowing itself, drawing down the Or into the Choshech itself, to be Ma'ached as HaMaisa B'achtis Gemur, to unify the intellectual process of trying to know something within the bittul hamuchletes of not knowing anything at all. But oifen shaha'or, that the light that's drawn down from the level of Yosef HaTzadik and the level of knowledge and the level of Torah and the level of Chachma, it's moisiv kishut v'hischadshus lahabittul v'hadveka shebe'etzem shalamalam min ha'or. It illuminates and it adds a increase in my consciousness and an increase in the vitality of the mind and the experiential process of being mavata myself l'mala mitam v'das in the element of choshech. The tachlis is to be mavata myself like David Malka Mashiach, which is why Mashiach ben David is barosh. That's the tachlis. But the avodah of Yosef HaTzadik is to draw down the chachma into the bittul itself, and that's why Yeravim ben Nevat is also going to be brought into Gan Eden, but the problem is he has to recognize that he's not barosh, because the Or has to be moisif a kishut and hischachus. It has to create a adornment of consciousness and a renewal of the mind that illuminates the bittul and the dvekus that comes about with the choshech that emerges afterwards with a newfound intensity. And this is the aspect of the bechina of Yosef HaTzadik, that acharei shemishtachavim loy, Only after everybody bows down to Yosef HaTzadik and recognizes the Tachlis is Chochma and recognizes the Tachlis is Torah, only then Meir es Oire li Yehuda shel Mashiach ben David. Then Yosef HaTzadik reveals his light to Mashiach ben David, which is the secret of the David Malay, Dalid Vav Yud Dalid, which is the bittul of David Malka Mashiach and the level of Bina on the level of Choshech, but with the illumination of the Yud of Yosef HaTzadik, which is the expression of Chachma within Bina, of light within Choshech, where it's Elu ve'elu divrei Elokim Chaim. Ummemala oisam b'chinas David Malay, which is the aspect of Moshe Rabbeinu, which is Koilel Beis Mashiach Ka'echad, which is the das of Moshe that has Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. V'yesh b'chol zed devarim aruchim ve'amukim she'ein kan makom laharich. And with regards to all of these matters, there are very deep and elongated expressions of ideas, and now is not the place to go through them. So we'll go weiter into what the Rebbe is saying. And now we can explain inyan ha'ichud bebechinas ha'or v'hachoshech. So we understand that both are fundamentally necessary, the chochma and the bina, the height of the waves and the width of the waves, the expression of the idea in a clarified way, which is associated with the illumination of Yosef HaTzadik, and the chochma that's yored me lamala lamata, which is the secret of the height of the wave, which is 300 parsos, as well as the width between the waves, which is the bina, which is Yehuda, which is the element of not knowing, which is the element of the choshech and the bittul muchletas that comes about by not knowing anything whatsoever. So the Rebbe now is going to be Magala, the tachlis of the chibur and the yichud between the two of them. And all of this is going to help us understand why it is that the Ois Tzadi of the Arizal, which theoretically should reflect the Pnimius HaDavarim, is in truth reflecting what seems to be a disconnection of an ach ba'ach, and how that disconnection, when seen through the lens of unity, is in truth going to reveal an even deeper level of connection. All of this is speaking towards the radical unity between Chachma and Bina, which we'll continue to uncover slowly but surely. Va'ata, says the Rebbe in Ois Yud, Nevair inyan ha'ichud bebechinas ha'or v'hachoshech. So now let's see how it applies, how the unification between these two levels of Chachma and Bina, of not knowing and knowing, of clarity and disclarity, how they unify together. Dine be'emes, the truth of the matter is, shebamakom ha'gavoa biyoter, and the highest and loftiest place that the human mind is capable of grasping, yesh makom shemitzad echad hu tachlis haor, umitzad sheni hu gam makom hachoshech v'hatzimtzum hachi mavhil. That at the highest level, at the gar of the radla of the sha'ashuim kavyachol, the highest levels available, what the tzadikei emes are thinking about all the time, the das elyon, that the tzadikei emes are always perpetually engaged in, the acknowledgement that everything is unified and everything is good. It's the reality that at that very same point, it's the highest level of light and also the highest level of the tzimtzum hachi mavhil. Tzimtzum hamavhil, which is the lashon from the Lubavitcher Rebbe, the Rebbe writes over here, Koloshan Admir Lubavitch is representative of the originality of the original origination of Tzimtzum, is that bewilderment of the impossibility of knowing anything. So in this lofty place, we're going to see how both the light and the darkness, Chachma and Bina, are mechuber yachad. Why? Like we've spoken about so often, the entire purpose of creation is the descent away from the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu down into the areas of concealment. But the descent into the areas of concealment is so that we can ascend afterwards back into the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so that everything that seems to have come down and descended downwards is eventually going to ascend upwards and move back up into the inner interiority of all things, back to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as it's written in the beginning of the Sefer Eitz Chaim, and there's a quote from the Arizal, Sha'ashem HaGadol, that the essential name of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the Dalid Oisios of Havaya Yud Kei Vav Kei. Why is it referred to as Havaya? And the Gra brings us down the halacha. Nikra Kain al Hira'aso Havyuso Hanitzchias B'Kiyumo La'ad. It represents the eternal presence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, as well as the perpetual upkeep and the eternality of HaKadosh Baruch Hu and his perpetual existence. Haya Hoiva Vihiyah, the tripartite breakdown of time, past, present, and future, that which was, that which is, and that which will be. That which was terem habriya, says the Arizal, before creation, ubezman kiyum habriya, and that which is in the time of the creation of the world, va'acharei tesapchu el mashahaya, and that which will be after things revert back to the way that they were. But the Rebbe always asks on the words of the Arizal, what do you mean when things revert back to the way they were? Why not just say past, present, and future? If things are reverting back to the way they were before the beginning, so why ever leave the beginning? It's not a game. Elamad, that the entire process of descending downwards into the realms of concealment is to be moisif the kishut, is to add additional adornment adornments into the light of infinitude, which prior to the descent downwards cannot reveal itself within the realms of finite constriction, because it was assumed that the infinite light can't be found there. But once it descends down into the realms of finite constriction, we come to realize that, wow, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu can reveal itself within the concealment of the Yesh as well. And then we bring all of the pratim of the Yesh back up to the Ayin, Hayoter Sharashi, and reveal that the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is even higher than what we could have ever conceived of without the Tzimtzum itself, which is what the Rebbe Rashab describes very clearly at the beginning of Hemshech Samech Vav, that the Tachlis is to go back after the end of creation, back to that which was before, but now with a renewed sense of power of revealing that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is found everywhere. V'hainu, what does it mean, says the Rebbe? Sheyachzor hakol el ha'or ein sof, that everything should return back to the infinite light. Ubi'arnu bazeh b'harbe makomos, and we've explained already in many, many places. The nachzor el ha'or ein sof, what does it mean to return back to the infinite light, again, as it was prior to the creation? This is the element of the Tosefes Kisha, the additional adornment, the perfectibility of perfection, where perfection is revealed to be more perfect than we conceived it to be in its original perfection. When we return back to the Tainug HaPashut HaTmidi, the Or Ein Sof Sha'al Yedei Kol Habriya, that we experience the simple pleasure that is perpetually unfolding, that is rooted in the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that emerges from within all of existence. Shebeintayim Tiyeh Hesklalis Bo'or Ein Sof, that first and foremost we have to ascend back up into the Or Ein Sof, which is the element of the Tainug Tmidi, which is not a Tainug. A perpetual pleasure is not pleasurable. But when we draw down the changes of existence, we draw down the Tainug She'eno Tmidi. What we do is we draw the momentary pleasure into the perpetual pleasure. The level of Chochma, the level of infinitude, is referred to as something referred to as Tainug Tmidi Eno Tainug. Perpetual pleasure is not pleasure, because in that place of illumination, in that place of light, in that place of Bitul Muchletes, in that place of Or Ein Sof, so the infinite is the infinite, and it doesn't face any constriction, it doesn't face any necessity to overcome the imposed boundaries that the human mind, through Das Tachton, imposes on Das Elyon. And we make HaKadosh Baruch Hu smaller because our human consciousness is impossible to grasp the greatness and the grandeur and the impossible unity and infinitude of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the tachlis is to go from that place of perpetual pleasure that's unchanging with no concealment, and then to descend down into the place of the changes where theoretically we're going to lose the ability to experience that perpetual pleasure of Chachma. But the job of descending down into that place of the interrupted pleasure of the need to move between clarity and concealment of the realm of Bina is only for the purpose of taking that experience of the renewability of pleasure, of finding pleasure from within a state of non-pleasure, finding comfort from within a state of discomfort, finding joy from within a state of sadness that is only possible for a person down here in the lower realms, in the realms of Bina. When we bring that back up into the place of Chachma, what we've done now is we've unified the realm of Chachma, which is Tainug Tmidi Eno Tainug, that perpetual pleasure is unpleasurable, and the secret of the Hischatshus HaTainug, which takes place in the realm of Bina, the perpetual renewal of Tainug that takes place through change. And what we create is what the Rebbe refers to as the Tnuas HaHischatshus B'toich Tainug HaTmidi, the movement, the perpetual movement of renewal, which is the sense of Bina and not knowing, that enables me to renew the pleasure of the perpetuality of pleasure in the realm of Chachma at each and every moment, where it's new and old at the same time, it's light and dark at the same time, in the secret of Reish Luas Yada. And the tachlis is to go down for the sake of coming back up, in order to reveal how profoundly illuminated it is up there. Zak the Heilige Rebbe. V'nei be'emes, when it comes to talking about the highest levels of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's revelation in this world, when it comes to talking about these lofty infinite levels, and we discussed this in the Shir on the Zohar yesterday, even the Or Ein Sof, even when we talk about the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, we're not talking about HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'chvaydu v'atzmo chas v'shalom. We're talking about a gilui that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has decided to be Megala, that's referred to as an Or Ein Sof, meaning to say that even the loftiest level that we're speaking about when we talk about the ungraspability of things is still not talking about the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu chas v'shalom, because the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu never enters into conversation. It's ever present in every fabric of everything ever imagined, but nevertheless it's inaccessible and it's ungraspable, and it remains hidden away in a way that can never be grasped. Hine be'emes gam ha'or ein sof rak giloi shel Hashem sheratzu legalus or ein sof. In truth, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, or the light of the infinite that is revealed, is also the desire that HaKadosh Baruch Hu had to reveal his light by way of infinitude, which is referred to by the Arizal in Shar Mem Beis as Malchus de Ein Sof, as the lowest level of Ein Sof Kavyachol that allows itself to become subject to revelation. It doesn't mean that there's actual separation within Ein Sof, Chas v'Shalom. It just means that the levels of infinitude that we perceived as being the original infinity are only gradations of infinitude when we detach ourselves from the lower levels and we attach ourselves to higher levels, we come to see how the highest level that we conceived of was in truth just the lower level of the next levels. And so that's what it means when we talk about Malchus de Ein Sof. That's the desire of HaKadosh Baruch Hu to reveal himself in this world. And so even the Or Ein Sof is not the highest level imaginable. V'im kain, and therefore, l'chayra kademis lahagilei ha'or Ein Sof b'chinas hatzimtzum achi gadol, which means that before the world was created, there was an Or Ein Sof, which the Eitz Chaim says existed prior to the creation of the world. Well, the implication must be if that wasn't the true source of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence, which it obviously isn't, that implies that there was a tzimtzum, a constriction, something was concealed in order to reveal that first revelation, which the Ari says exists before the concealment. And imkain, and therefore shuv nira sha'choshech l'mala min ha'or. We see once again that above the highest light, above the loftiest light of Or Ein Sof, there's a tzimtzum that preceded it. And so again, we see this balance of trying to figure out which is higher, the darkness or the light. But the truth of the truth, as we spoke about last night in Torah Kuf Yud Beis and Soar Tasa Lateva from Rabbeinu, the truth of the truth is that B'Sheresh Ha'elyon Hagavoa Bioter, at the loftiest point that is higher than any imaginable starting point, Asur Lahavchin Es Tzaid HaTzimtzum. We cannot begin to discuss the reality that HaKadosh Baruch Hu was mitzamtzim himself. All we have in those places is the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light and the recognition that it does not represent the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. But we can't begin to talk about the secret of the tzimtzum that exists there. She'asur laleches yoter gavoa. We're not allowed to speak of those places. It doesn't mean that there's no tzimtzum there. It just means we're not allowed. We don't have the kalim to speak in those places. Ella yesh rak ledas. All we can know, all we can affirm, all we can give our lives for is that the Or Ein Sof that HaKadosh Baruch Hu reveals, the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that descends down to give shape to all of the worlds, is me'uchad betachlis im ha'ma'atzil kavyachol, v'nidvakim im ha'ma'atzil al yedei ha'gilui or shalo, u'mekayim u'boy tidvak, b'ma'atzil, atzmo. All we have to know is, on the one hand, the highest level of light is not identifiable with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but nevertheless, the highest level of light is inherently connected with the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, so to speak, which does not reveal itself. It's the Or Ein Sof that's Kaima L'She'ela. It's the Or Ein Sof, the reflection of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinitude that he is mitzamsem and reveals into this world, is that which we have the capacity of grasping that we can't grasp. Yet that which precedes it is the ungraspability of ungraspability, that which cannot be grasped even in its ungraspability, and that's the Or Ein Sof, the lo kamil shela. That's the Or Ein Sof that the Ramah Mipano brings is not something that is susceptible to investigation. It is always there. It is always inherently connected to everything, but it does not enter into the conversation. What enters into the conversation is the secondary expression of Or Ein Sof, the kaimil that's mu'uchad betachlis ha'achdus, in the secret of the dvekus ha'amiti that is l'mala mitam v'das, in the secret of the raz d'meim nusa, but nevertheless they are not identifiable with one another. It's the secret of what the Rebbe is always describing as a love b'derech midosav, that we come to connect to the infinite and essential light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, specifically by way of the inessential things that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has revealed in this world, which are the most essential, which are the Torah and the mitzvos. It's a love b'derech midosav. We connect to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the revelations that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has revealed, which in spite of the fact are not identifiable with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God forbid, nevertheless, because they emerge directly from the infinite, so to speak, and the impossibility of the tzimtzum, when we attach ourselves to them, we are attaching ourselves to the residual light of the infinite that has never actually left. And so we can't speak on that high level except to know that the Or Ein Sof is me'uchad betachlis im ha'ma'atzil, that the light of the infinite is fundamentally unified with the ma'atzil, with the source of all illumination, with the source of all emanation, with HaKadosh Baruch Hu b'choydei u'ba'atzmo kavyachol, u'nidvakim im ha'ma'atzil al yidei hagiloi or shalo. And the way that we attach ourselves to the creator of the world, the way that we attach ourselves to the infinite one, blessed be he, is specifically through the revelations that he has revealed, which are his Torah and mitzvos, and the Shem Havaya, HaShairashi, and the Shem Havaya Bli Oisios, and the original instantiation of Mitzios, which are all midos. Those are not the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, God forbid, because to identify them as the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light would be draw the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God forbid, into a place of graspability, which is tantamount to Avodah Zarah, and therefore we have to come upon the radical secret of the Raz D'Meim Nusa, that it's specifically from within the revelations that are inherently revealed from this unrevealed expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's infinity that we come to attach ourselves to the infinite one that rests beyond all of the revelations, in the secret of a love b'derech midosav, which means to say, to be mistavik im ha'ma'atzil al yedei giloi ha'or shalo, through the revelation of his light, Umakayim ubot tidvak, to accomplish the mitzvah of bot tidvak, to come and connect to the Shekhinah. Chazal say you can't connect to the Shekhinah. The Shekhinah is going to swallow a person up. Elama connect to Talmidei Chachamim, meaning to say that one wants to connect directly to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. One cannot connect directly to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu because Eish Eichla, the mind will disintegrate. The mind will lose complete capacity of finding what it needs to find. And therefore, we say that Uboy Tidva, connect yourself to the Talmid Chacham, and by connecting yourself to the Talmid Chacham or the Tzaddik, you're Mamela connected to the Or Ein Sof Kav Yachol. And that's a secret of all attachment. All attachment is HaKadosh Baruch Hu revealing his Tzimtzum and us connecting to the Tzimtzum in order to come to find the Bal HaTzimtzum within the Tzimtzum itself, to come to find the Bal HaShem within the Shem. We have access to the Shem. We don't have access to the Bal HaShem, but through the Shem, we begin to have access to the Bal HaShem because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wanted to give us access to that place. By connecting to the constriction, by connecting to the concealment, we have the ability of connecting directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu himself through the revelation of his concealment. It's impossible. It's forbidden to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in any other way other than the concealment, other than the revelations of his. This is the kvira of the goyim, the kvira of the nations of the world, who think that it's possible to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without the Torah and without the Shekhinah chas v'shalom. They have a feeling that it's possible to connect directly to HaKadosh Baruch Hu and that one does not need to go by way of the midos. But we understand that it's a love b'derech midos, of that a person has to specifically go through the concealment and the revelation in order to come to that place which is so concealed that it can never be revealed. And this idea, based on all of the tzaddikim, is that the unique quality of Jewish faith is that we're unable to reach the essence and that we're unable to run directly to the infinite. It's b'chol karenu elav lo midoisav, but at the same point, it's eish ochlo. So what's the answer? So we have to go elav b'derech midoisav. We connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu through his Giluyim, which is why the Shem Havaya, the Gra says, and Safar Ditznius, and the Yoshelevov says this as well, and the Rebbe brings us all down in his Biurim on the Rechov Sanar of the Rashash and the secret of the Tavraka, the Gushpanka, and the Shemos Havayos HaMenukados, that a person has to be mamshech down from the Nitzitz Aleph and the Nitzitz Beis. But the Chiddush of Klal Yisrael is that we have a separation, there's a Mesach, there's a Pargod. That's the secret of Mati V'lei Mati. That's the secret of the chambers that are created so that we can have some element of connectivity to the infinite, even though we can't reach the infinite itself. Mashen came by the Goyim that want to run directly to the infinite and claim that they themselves can become God, God forbid, which is what the Rebbe says elsewhere in the name of the Bali Tosfos, that the Ikar Nakuda of every tzaddik is to be megalazan in the fact that no human being can be perfect. Because the moment that a human being can become perfect is the moment that a person senses that they can grasp the essence of God. And if I can grasp the essence of God, then God forbid the person can become God themselves, which is the Klipa HaMeira'ah. And the Rebbe continues. Os Yud Beis. Habiur shebeshayrish kol asherashim ha'or v'ha'choshech me'uchad mitachlas. That in the source of all sources, the light and the darkness are unified together. Mashiach ben Yosef, Mashiach ben David, Chachma and Bina, Choshech and Or, height and width. If a person was able to connect directly to the infinite, so to speak, the essence of the infinite, without the revelations and the tzimtzum and the seder shtalshalis and the shem havaya of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, that he's megala, haya amnan hachi gavoa bebchinas hachoshech, v'hainu bebchinas sheme'al hagilui. If in the end of the day, the Tachlis was to connect to HaKadosh Baruch Hu without any limitation whatsoever and to ascend upwards to the essence of the infinite without any tzimtzum, so then we would rightfully say that Choshech would be above Or. We would say that the Avodah of Daven Malka Mashiach and Mitzvahs Maisios and Bina wouldn't need the infusion of Chochma, of Yosef Atzadik, of Or. Because then the inyan would be choshech, then it would be about running upwards to the infinite light without any tzimtzum, which is chas v'shalom, rachmana litzlan mehaidaisa. We find HaKadosh Baruch Hu through the tzimtzum. But because the only way to attach ourselves to the infinite light is through the Giluyim, that the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is a revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's essence that is not reachable, but it's expressed within the infinite light. And when we attach ourselves to the infinite light through the Tzimtzum, through the Torah, through the Mitzvahs, through the Or Sheba, through the Chochma, through the Seichel Shebachol Davar, through the Avodah of Yosef HaTzadik, so then we attach ourselves to that which is known. That which is known is always at the service of that which is not known. Nevertheless, we can know. We can have a little bit of a hasaga of Or. It's impossible to attach oneself to the essence of God, so to speak, which is above his revelation. And the element of revelation is the revelation of the infinite light, which is the beginning of the tzimtzum and the midos and all of the Torah and the mitzvahs that we encounter in this world, which are the midos through which we attach ourselves to HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So we see then that the tachlis is not to go directly to the choshech of unknowability and complete annihilation of the mind, because the tachlis is to be masig the or that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has been megala, so that we can come to grasp through the or that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is megala, the choshech ha'elyon that can't be grasped. But at the same point, we know that the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only a revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that or is coming from a revelation, but it's not coming from the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaviyachol. Meaning it comes from the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaviyachol, but it's not identifiable what the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaviyachol. And we believe in a Kadosh Baruch Hu in a place beyond any revelation that a Kadosh Baruch Hu wanted to reveal. So on the one hand, we know that the Or Ein Sof is a revelation of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, but it's also the only grasp that we have of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, because it's only through the grasp of that which is graspable that we come to reach that which is ungraspable. But at the same point, anything that's graspable is by definition not the essence of the thing itself, and it's not the essence of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, and Mamela, we believe in a Keskashros above that. Even within the hasaga of the light itself, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is megala to us, the Shem Havaya Ha'atzmi, the Torah, the mitzvos, the tzimtzum, all of the giluyim of the Or Ein Sof, which is the Hisgalus, and the Tachlis is Or, which is the Tachlis of Limud Torah. Nevertheless, within the Tachlis of Limud Torah, within the Tachlis of the Chachma of Yosef Atzadik and the Yediyah Satira, is inherently rooted that secret of the Choshech HaElyon, which is that no matter how much I will come to know, I will always come to know that I don't know, and I will always come from a place of connectivity to that place which I cannot connect to. When I'm realizing that I can't yet reach the full essence of something, and that I'm still only attaching myself to the revelation of that thing, in that moment I'm attaching myself to the hiddenness that is hidden and revealed within the revelation itself. I come to the awareness that I can't attach myself to HaKadosh Baruch Hu in his essence, so to speak. But it's only through the Giluyim. So I'm masig the Or and the Choshech at once. They're both the tachlis. I'm going through the hasaga of the Or, which is the Talmud Torah Keneged Kulam, but the tachlis of the hasaga of the Or is to reveal the Choshech Elyon, which is the mitzvahs maisios. This is the element of the tzimtzum hachi gadol, the hachi mafil, that is megala, the highest light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu kaviyachol. Mitzad sheni, from the other side, anu yodim sha'or ein soifu b'tachlis yichudim atzmusis baruch. But at the same point, we're fundamentally aware that it is inherently connected. The Or Ein Sof, the Shem Havaya, the mitzvahs, the Torah, somehow, some way, through the secret of Razadayim Nusa, which we have a grasp of by understanding the mechanics of the world of Atzilus, and from there above, as the Leshem teaches us, we have the basic fundamental awareness that in spite of the fact that the Or Ein Sof is not identifiable with HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nevertheless, it's betachlis hayichud imatzmusi baruch, she'asr la'asoi shum hefred chas v'shalom. Nevertheless, somehow everything is contained within the fundamental essence of the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. There's no separation. We're talking about the gradations and the separations of grasp of the mind. And when we attach ourselves to the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, even though we know that the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light is not the expression of the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, nevertheless, when we are aware that all we can attach ourselves to is the expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light, we also become aware of the fact that in spite of the fact that it's only an expression, it's still an expression of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's light. And by HaKadosh Baruch Hu, an expression is also revelatory of the essence, in spite of the fact that it's not identifiable with the essence. Move on, and this is the way that we can begin to understand. And again, we have to keep in mind what the Rebbe said earlier, that at the very beginning of this whole sugya, it's very difficult to explain the length of this matter, and we're only going to discuss the beginning. And we'll go weiter. But then move on, and this is the way that we can understand at the roots of all roots, at the highest place of Reshid Loas Yadav and Iva Ayin B'Vasachas, Ha'or v'Ha'choshechim B'Bechina Shav B'Shav. Chachma and Bina are unified together. Mu'uchadim B'Tachlis Ha'achtos. Panim B'Panim, Ach B'Ach, connection, disconnection, light, darkness, Hashpa'a, Kabbalah, Hashpa'a. It's all the same at that level. It's all revelatory of the same expression of both of them being fundamentally contained within the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Sof Davar, in the end of the day, at the end of this kata, Even though the purpose of all things is the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the essential light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, which is the element of Chochma, which is the element of the height of the wave. בכל זה יש בזה בעצמו גם כן הבחנה של חושך, היות שהאור אין סוף ורק בחינת גילוי של השם, שעל ידי זה אנו מדביקים בעצמוס מציאות המעציל שמעל כל הגילויים. Nevertheless, in spite of the fact that we're dealing with a hasaga b'derech chachma, b'derech Yosef atzadik, b'derech the Torah, which is the highest level, nevertheless, hidden within it is the kernel of David Malka Mashiach, which is the secret of the bittul of choshech and the bittul that comes about specifically by way of bina, which is the secret of avoida b'maisa. The secret of the tachlis of Torah is avoida b'maisa, where a person is forced to come in contact with the unknowability of all things, because I can't even know the material in front of me, let alone the inherent light within it. There's a havchan of choshech in the sense that we know that the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu is only a revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and that it's not the essence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, but it's the revelation through which we attach ourselves to the essence of the existence of HaKadosh Baruch Hu Kaviyachol, which exists above all revelation. And this is the aspect of David Melech Yisrael Chai V'Kayim. שאף שבבחינת שבתחילה הסגלוס דוד היה נראה לשאול עליו השלום, שדוד הוא בבחינת נהורה עומקה, even though that it appeared at the beginning to Shaul HaMelech, that David HaMelech, which is the aspect of Bina, appears to be a dark light, because Shaul is the element of what? Shaul is the element of Mashiach ben Yosef. And from the perspective of Shaul HaMelech, so that avoida is the tachlis is Torah, and the tachlis is the gilui of the or, and the tachlis is the yediyah, and the tachlis is the chochma shebachol davar, and the tachlis is to know and to have control. And then when he sees David Malka Mashiach, which represents the avoid of Yehuda, which represents the avoid of Lo Yada, which represents the Choshech HaElyon, which reveals that Or Ein Sof is just a Gilui Ba'alma, Klape, the infinite light. Yes, it's revelatory of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu B'chvoidu V'atzmo Kavyachol, but it's not the thing itself. And it reveals the Maila of Bina, it reveals the Maila of Lo Yada, it reveals the Maila of Choshech. And at the beginning, Shaul saw this and he thought that it was a darkened light. He thought it was a Nehura Ukma, a darkened light, a light of darkness that didn't want to engage in Yudiyah. But in truth, David HaMelech is alive and well. Because in the fullest expression of it, David is coiled within himself the avoida of Yosef, which is the Yud of David, when it's spelled out fully, which is the avoida of Mashiach ben Yosef, which is the need to perpetually know, but then to come to terms with not knowing, and then to know more and more. And it's the yichud of David and Shaul, it's the yichud of Yosef and David together. The yichud of the or and the choshech and the giloy of the choshech ha'elyon within the kli of the or. Bim kain hu malei or v'loy choshech. And therefore, in spite of the fact that David Malka Mashiach represents the unknowability of all things and the impossibility of grasp, nevertheless, it's an illumination. Shemagala es hanuhura ha'chavir tahayoter chazak. This bittul of David Malka Mashiach, the nuhura umka, the blackened light, which brings to mind the recognition that I can't know anything, and it reminds me and brings me face to face with the bina of it all. Nevertheless, that serves to reveal more and more of the Chochma, more and more of that which I do know, which is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is Chayk HaTov Lahetiv, and then HaKadosh Baruch Hu said Baruch Shamar V'Haya Olam, and that the Tachlis of Talmud Torah is my Mitzvos, which brings me to more Talmud Torah, and it's going to be the yichud of the two of them together. And over here, the Rebbe adds again, V'loi Nigmar Habir Shakasha Lahasbir Kol HaHakef Bazeh. And we have not completed the explanation of this because it's very difficult to go over this thing in its entirety. We have a few more pages left in this Torah, so it's a longer shir, but Be'ezras Hashem, we're going to go weiter in the hopes that this Torah is Mo'er, the Hamshacha Milamala from the HaChochma, to be Megala, the Yichud of Chochma and Bina, so that we can be Zeichet to the Orus of Keser in each and every moment in our lives, in the moments of darkness, moments of light as well. The Rebbe is now continuing with a little bit more of the Gemara. So we just discussed that there were the 300 parsos in the width of the wave, which is Bina, and 300 parsos in the length and the height of the wave, which is Chachma, and there's a yichud between the two of them to reveal the chibur between Or and Choshech. And this is all going to explain to us again this Ois Tzadi of the Arizal versus the Ois Tzadi of the Beis Yosef. The Gemara goes on and says, "V'zo ben gala legala tlas mea parsa v'rema de tlas the gala tlas mea parsa." That in between each and every wave was a measure of 300, and the height of each wave was a measure of 300. Tlas mea, 300, merames algar ha'amiti. It represents the highest level of divine consciousness that the human being is capable of beholding in this world, the highest levels of Keser, Chochma, and Bina, where in that place we see that there's a unification between Chochma and Bina, and Ani and Ayin, which enables us to work with this framework of the or and the choshech and the choshech and the or and the giloy and the he'elim and the he'elim and the giloy. So the reason that it's 300, yes, we now know why it has to be equal numbers, because Chachma and Bina are equalized and Shav b'Shav in that place of Shivayon Gemura. But why does it have to be specifically 300? So Zak the Rebbe, plus Meya, 300 is Merames al Hagar Ha'amiti. Each one is Mushlam with its own 10 spheros, and each of those 10 spheros have 10 spheros, which is 100, so 300, which is the Shin, as the Meshilach is Masbir, and that's Merames on the Gar Ha'amiti Hachi Elyon, the highest place, the Reshad Lo Yada of the Olam of the Sha'ashuim, in that place where the Oirich and the Roichev him b'bechina Shav b'Shav, where the depth and the length and the elongation and the application of ideas is equal to the idea itself, where all of the outgrowth is going to be shown to contain within itself the very kernel of the essence, and the essence is going to show itself to have contained the potential of the outgrowth. The Oirich, which is the Chachma and the Roichev, are equal in that place of 300 of the Gar Ha'amiti. And what does it mean, Parsi? Why are we talking about the measurement of parsaos? Parsi is the lashon of parsa and a mesach and what simsum. So here the Rebbe is honing in on the essential thing, and we spoke about this in the Zohar Kadosh yesterday, in Parshas Noach, in Arimas Yada B'Tzlusa, and how we create the prisu through the redifa of the machshava, the mind's attempt to run beyond the limit and then retreat after encountering the limit and then to move forward. And that chakika and that gilgul of the machshava creates within itself, in the lashon of the Kamarna and the lashon of the Gra, and in the lashon of the Ramchal Be'ikr in his parish on Arimas Yada B'Tzlusa, that the gilgulim of the machshava goes up and down, up and down, up and down, by way of encountering its restriction and then doubling down on itself. It creates this engraving, it creates the parsa, and so these 300 parsos represents the parsa that Chachma and Bina provide, so that we can actually gain access to the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, because we just said it's only through the tzimtzum, through the choshech, that's mislabish within the or, that we have any hasaga. So the parse is melashon parsa. It represents the parsa, the partition, the separation, and the mesach, that thing that stands between, hainu hatzimtzum, meaning constriction, the concealment of God. Hainu shebamakom kavoa zeh, in this lofty place where we are seeing the equality of the length and the width of Chachma and Bina, nira hakol ki'ilu bebechinas hatzimtzum v'achoshech. In this lofty place, the only comprehension that we have is a darkened comprehension in relationship to the darkness that abides in the lofty place that HaKadosh Baruch Hu is revealing the unity of all things. It all appears dark to us, not because it's dark, but because it's so blinding that we can't see it. Bebechinas tachlis hayediyah sheneda shalei neda, that the apex of wisdom is to know that we don't know, and the secret of knowing and not knowing at once, and the secret of Yosef, and the secret of David at once, and the secret of the unification between the two of them at once in this place of the Reshad Lo Yada. It's the Tachlis HaOr. Nevertheless, it's the highest thing that we can possibly know, but at the same point, it's the revelation of that which we don't know. In the Bechina of the Tachlis HaChoshech, it's the highest level of light that's revealing itself as the highest level of darkness, and the highest level of darkness is the highest level of light. And as we discussed above with regards to the Tefillin Shel Rosh and of Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam at the same time, or the language of the Rebbe, which was so the implication is that these ideas are expressing themselves simultaneously. Again, the Rebbe gave permission for the Talmidim to write these shirim down, and the Rebbe gave permission for these shirim to be given. So in spite of the fact that the Torah is of such a lofty level and it's not nigmar, nevertheless, the Talmidim of the Rebbe who brought these words down are already conveying to us a davar shalom nigmar that emerges from a thing that's nigmar, which is the same kind of relationship between the or and the choshech that we're discussing. The Gemara continues and it says, Zimnachada have azlinan be'urcha. Once upon a time we were walking along the path. V'dalinan gala ad chazinan be'merbasa de'kochvaya zuta. And a wave lifted us up until it brought us face to face with a small star. V'haviali kibibsar arbaim gride barza dechardala. And it appeared to me as if it was a space that was needed for sprinkling 40 seah, 40 measure of mustard seed. And if it raised us even higher, then we would have been scorched by the light of that star. So Zok the Heilige Rebbe, Hainu shebamakom gavoa zu hisig shetzricha liyois kam derech shel tzimtzum hanikris mar be'asad koichvaya zuta shi derech habina nikra koich v'zuta. that what happens when a person ascends upwards to the highest level is that they come to terms with the fundamental necessity of constriction and simsum, because without that simsum, then a person burns up and a person no longer has anything other than oiros, which is shiga on lagamri. The tachlis is oiros and kelim, chachma and bina. That when a person ascends to this lofty place through the lens of or, Shatzri Chalios, they understand that I also have to operate in accordance to the path of Tzimtzum, that is referred to as the Mirba'isa de Koichvaya Zuta, that this small illumination of the small star is that element of the Barba'isa, the Ribua, the square that we're going to see that contains the circle within it, which is the secret of Tzimtzum. It's the Derech of Bina, which is referred to as the lower star, Hanikra Koichva Zuta. So when a person comes to this lofty place of the equality between Chachma and Bina, a person comes out with the recognition that, wow, I mamish need Bina. I need the tzimtzum so much in this world. I need the details so much. I need those places of concealment so much in my life, because that's the kli that is going to be mahapech me to become something that can receive the or. And this element of the tzimtzum is referred to as the marbisa de koichvaya zuta, the ribua, almost like a square, says the Rebbe. The nikreis marbiyasa dahainu nikras ribua. It's like the fourfold expression of something. The tzimtzum, it's working through the stages of one, and then not one, but returning back to one, and then growing to two, and then not two, but returning back to zero, and then from one to two to three, and then from three to try to get to four. A person can't do it, and they have to go back down through the tzimtzum of the mishulish and the kafel and the pashut in order to get to the but that square is the representation of bina, of kind of creating boundaries and lines that are necessary to measure the light that's descending. The echad meha hasberim bezeh, and one of the explanations of this idea of why bina and simsum are referred to as a square over here is that bina oise gvulim lechol davar. That Bina, what it does is it constricts and it measures the infinite light of Chachma, and it maintains a spatial orientation and a time orientation so that something can become itself and not some other thing. This is the element of squaring something in, of being in a square, a ribua, the element of a tchum and a gvul, the element of a limit point, the element of a boundary. That's Bina. That's what the tzaddik comes to realize is so fundamentally necessary when they ascend upwards into the Yam HaElyon. They come down with the hasaga of needing to be drawing it down into Bina. Gam Nikras Arbayim, that Bina is also Merumas in the Mem of the Meruba, which is the four sides of the square, which is also the Gematria of Arbayim. It's 40, which is Ben Arbayim Labina. Again, just another remez why the Ribua, why the square, why the Tzimtzum that is beheld in the ascent upwards is a hint to the Tzimtzum necessary through the inclusion of Bina into Avodah. Not only that, we saw that Bina takes precedence in the place where Bina and Chachma are unified. The Arbayim Gam Kein Bebechinas Haribuya Mikol Hatstadim Kamoy Ha'ismem, and 40 also represents 10, 10, 10, 10 on each side, where it's an equal level, like the Mem Stuma, which reveals the Gvulos and the Tchumim Shel Habina, the Tzimtzum and the measurements and the constriction that the Bina provides. Ulechoira alulim lihisarif mehahevel v'ha'esh shel Habina shesarefes kol davar v'yichoyle la'avid es kol ha'olam. But if a person sees the need to use Bina, to draw Bina down into the spiritual conversation, and to place Bina and limitation and not knowing and Iyadiyah and Choshech and Yagiya and all of the desires and the yearning that come about through the act of Tzimtzum and Gvuros, so then God forbid it could be a Riboy Kalim and a person can be burnt in the fires of Bina, and the Riboy Gvuros can extinguish, or they can burn or destroy the individual. The fear of the hevel ha'esh shel habina. Bina is a gevura de kazach. Bina is an intensified avoida, and not every person has the ability to engage in the constriction properly, because it can be sarefes kol davar v'yichola la'aved es kol ha'olam. This is what we know, that Bina dinin misabra mina, that as powerful as Bina is, there's an element of dinei leia that are yotzeh from Bina, and in those dinei leia which find them expression in the malchus of Bina, which is tuna, which are difficult, alulam nisraf es kol ha'olam. A person, a tzaddik who operates with that perspective of constriction and the limitation, without opening oneself up to the or and only focusing on the choshech, which is in truth rooted in a higher place than the light, nevertheless, that can create a real difficulty for a person. It can burn the world. The beprat ata, especially now, shehisig sheshayrish habina hu b'makom gavoa ma'od, the linan gala. right? Because we already saw that in the makom of the chibur of the Roish in Reish Lo Siyada, where Chochma and Bina are unified together, Bina takes precedence because it creates more gilui, and there's a tainug of gilui there. There's a tainug of hasaga in the place of Bina, and there's a shichrus that comes from that place. It's a yayin hamasameach that can become the yayin hamashaker. It's the place of the chet of the Yitzadas, where David, where Adam was boicher in a hasaga that was murgash instead of a hasaga that was low murgash, which is the kisui and the tznius of Chachma, the desire to feel in Bina, especially once one knows the intensity of the feeling in Bina and what it feels like to have that limitation of the self and to feel that one is mamish doing something biyagia. So there's the concern that a person is going to want to run only to Bina, as we saw earlier, that Menachusayam gave the measurements for Bina prior to the measurement of Chachma, because Bina in this place provides more of an intensification. It's the Hischad Shesamoichin. That place of the Metzach of Atik, which is the of Arich, which is the place of the Bina Ilah, the Sherish of Bina, where in that place in Rava de Ravin, there's a tainug, almost a tainug hamurgash, habilti murgash, hababa murgash. It's known that in Lubavitch they didn't want to eat by the third meal because it was such a zman of hasaga, lamalame hasaga. It was the element of lachiyos and bara, of fasting, of not needing to partake of any food. It wasn't a fasting, which is the opposite of Shabbos, but it was the full expression of food, which can only express itself by way of not partaking, because the attempt to partake implies that partaking can satisfy. The relinquishment from attempting to partake and holding back is potentially the only kli available to reveal the potency of the pleasure available, in the sense that there's no kli that is capable of drawing it down, as the tzaddikim describe in the avodah of Yom Kippur. So they didn't want to eat, but because it was a Suda of Shabbos, the Rebbe Rashab instituted that there should be a small achila, because it's what the Rebbe describes as drawing down the hargasha of tainuk habilti murgash into the murgash. The tachlis is to have a murgash in the Rava de Ravin. But that desire of the hargasha can be so overwhelming that a person can be burnt by that flame. And that's why in the Gemara, he said that if I was to be raised even closer to that star, I would have been burnt. But Baruch Hashem, HaKadosh Baruch Hu has protected me through the tzimtzum. When a person sees the brilliance and the power of this expression of Bina and the power of the potency of the Gevuros above the plain and self-sameness and the Menucha, Kitov of Chachma, a person may want to run up there, and a person can, God forbid, be burnt with the fire of the Aish in that place. Because a person might think that that's the higher Darga, to run perpetually to the Choshech of it all. But that's why the Gemara continues to describe, V'dami lagala kala lechaverta, chaverta shavkas mida ba'alma delay shaftana denisa ana v'navdana. One wave says to the other, have you left anything left over for me to destroy? I want to go and destroy something. And the other wave says, look how great the master of the world is, for he has created the sand that blocks the sea. So the Rebbe says as follows, the malchus that's ganuz and rada, this highest hakara, the highest hakara of the yichud between chochma and bina, between the need for or and choshech bi'erbuvya, and that without limit, a person can find themselves digging too deep into the choshech chas v'shalom and entering into those dinim. And that there has to be the idea that the tachlis of Torah is Maisim Toivim, and the tachlis of Maisim Toivim is Torah, and it's the yichud of Mashiach ben David and Mashiach ben Yosef, which is the secret of the Malchus Agnuza Beradla. David Malka Mashiach, who was looked at by Shaul HaMelech, who looked at it from the perspective of the Yesod, looking down on Malchus, it says, you're much lower, you're a Nuhura Umka, you're a black light. But it's specifically that the Malchus from that place goes upwards and it ascends back up through all of the Seder Ishtalshalos for the sake of the Tosefes Kisha to be Megalazain and the Malchus Agnuza Beradla, which is that all of concealment is in truth rooted in the highest place imaginable. And so we're talking about the Malchus HaGenuza B'Radla. It's the aspect of the waves of the sea, the aspect of the Malchus HaGenuza B'Radla, the secret of existence that is rooted in the most unknowable place imaginable. It's the secret of the waves of the sea, the raging of the sea. Shem yoiter gavoya mehayabasha. The sea, revelation, unity, secrets, clarification, is stronger than the Abasha, which is dry land. Dry land is limiting. Dry land is Bina. Dry land is constriction. The sea is Chachma, Yama Chachma. It's the infinitude of all things that wants to swallow up the Bina. In truth, the sea and the Galei Hayam are much stronger than the dry land. And Chachma is much stronger than Bina. V'hachinami, the Malchus Agnuza B'Radla, Gavoya Be'emes Me'akol. And in truth, this Hakara of the Malchus Agnuza B'Radla, which is the unity between knowledge, but really bringing me back to a place of not knowing in the end of the day, that's really the highest place. Meaning to say that this notion of not knowing, that's associated with the Galei Hayam, that's associated with the Bina of it all, that's associated with the concealment and the Choshech HaElyon of it all, and this realization that we don't know anything in the Maisa Mitzvah and the Avodah of David Melech Mashiach, that this appears to be so much stronger than the revealed land of Hasaga and Yediyah and Chachma. Aval Chol HaYavasha, but there's a secret that HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created, and that's called the Chol of the Yavasha, the sand of the dry land. The boundary point between the infinitude of not being able to be masig anything at all other than to be masig that I don't know anything at all, and the responsibility of being a person who tries to know in this world, the yichud of choshech, which is yoter gavoa mehaor b'shoresh ha'elyon, and the secret of radla. But the whole of the avasha, the dry land that has the sand, which is in truth yoter chazak megali hayam. There's the edge of dried land, the edge of chachma, the pnimis of chachma, the tachlis of all things, which is that HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants us to civilize the world and be present in chachma and draw the light back down into Metzias and be masig like Yosef Atzadik, the highest level of Yesod, which is even higher than Malchus Hagnuza Baradla, the secret of the Ayin Hayoter Sharashi, the secret of I'm always working to draw down more light, even though the Iker is to come to realize that I can never do anything at all. The secret of the sand is that secret that reminds us that even though Bina is very, very high, and even though not knowing is very, very high, and even though living in the chaos of not knowing, and living in that chaos of not having any control, and living in that place of not being able to know anything, and not to be masig, and to find sipuk in that place, nevertheless, the Chol Hayam reminds us to always draw it back down into a place of Yediyah. The Chol of the Avasha, the sand of the dry land, is stronger than the waves of the sea. Why? Because the sand comes from the Shoyresh, which is Hareza Soid Shala Yisoid, the Atik Sha'oise Sheyagvul Hareshad Lo Yada. The Chol Hayam is the secret of the Yisoid of Atik that's mislabish within the worlds of Reish Lo Yada in order to guide it and to found its foundation and to whisper to it that in truth this highest level of not knowing just reveals a higher level of knowing that we don't know and then not knowing again and then knowing more. But there's a secret of Yisoid Da'atik and the balance and the patience necessary for the day-to-day Yigiyah of the Yosef Hatzadik element, which remains higher in its capacity to tame the waves of the Reshad Lo Yada, which is the secret of Bina and Choshech Elyon and Lo Yada, which is higher than Yada, overtaking the desire to try and know anything in this world. Hainu Sha'af Shah Reshad Lo Yada Hu Me'al HaYisoid Da'atik, that even though Reshad Lo Yada is higher than Atik and the Yisoid of Atik, nevertheless, as the Leshem is masbir to us that the Yisoid of Atik is the foundation. Because Heyos Shah Iker Hulios Davik Ba'atzmus Hashem Yisbarach V'zeh Efshar Raka Yidi Hagili Da or in Seif Mepnei Hashem Roitzel Iskalus Daika Be'or Harisa Magvila Saradla. In truth, it's emes, that Bina brings us to such a hakara that I can't know anything at all. Nothing is nothing, anything is nothing, because all that exists is HaKadosh Baruch Hu. I don't need the Torah, I don't need the mitzvahs, God forbid, in order to run to that infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. On a certain hasaga from the depth and the depth of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's perspective of fundamental and unlimited unity, there's an emes to that. And that's the sakana inherent within the Malchus Hagnuza Baradlo, which are the Galei Hayam, that the Bina is Magala within the Kesser that wants to come and undo any attempt to know, any attempt to do, any attempt to study Torah for the sake of action. If action is the most significant thing, then let me live only in action. Let me forget about the need to draw the Chachma down. And therefore, there's the secret of the Chol Hayam, there's the secret of the sand of the sea, which protects us from falling sway into that trap of forgetting the Torah, God forbid, and running directly to the infinite, and always maintaining the patience and the self-sacrifice necessary for realizing Achen Ata Kel Mistata, that HaKadosh Baruch Hu, you have placed us in the belt to draw you down through your limitations, and as intoxicating as it would be to run and grasp you without limitation, I am going to continue to find you within the limitation of it all, because that's the mahalach that you've chosen for me. You want me to be Megala Or, not just the Choshech Elyon, not just the Galei Hayam of the Malchus Hagnuza Bereishit Lo Yada, that is such a potent idea that it has the possibility of shattering any of the edifices of responsibility and the need for continued work. But there's a secret of the Yisoid Da'atik, that even though the Yisoid Da'atik is lamata from the Moichin of Atik, which is the secret of Bereishit Lo Yada, nevertheless, the Yisoid Da'atik, which Leshem Shabbat Chaloma is Masbir is be'emes the Yisoid HaBinyan, because the Shurish is Yoter Gavoa from the Rosh of the tree. It plays more of a purpose in that radical secret that only Leshem based on the Gra can be Masbir, that the Yisoid of Atik, which is the recognition that no, HaKadosh Baruch Hu chose light. HaKadosh Baruch Hu Baruch Sha'amar V'haya Ha'olam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants me to be Mekayim the Torah. HaKadosh Baruch Hu felt that it was better for my neshama to be sent down into this world in order to be Mekayim the Taryag Mitzvahs Atliyim B'Torah and Tliyim B'Guf. And therefore, the avodah is not to fell sway into the drowning waters of infinitude and into the unknowingness of it all and into the oceanic sense of Malchus Agnuza B'Radla. But I have to attach myself to the Yesod Atik also, which is the acceptance of the reality of Chachma and Yosef HaTzadik within the light of David Malka Mashiach. And that's the secret of the Yesod Atik, of the Chol Hayam, the sand, that no matter how insignificant it seems and how weak it seems in the face of the Galei Hayam, nevertheless it has the ability to tame the Galei Hayam, because the Yesod Atik, the responsibility of drawing things back down into human consciousness, is the Hagavala, is the limitation that's placed on the infinite light that's being niskala through the Reisha Delo Isyada. Let's go weiter. We're almost there, Chavra. We're almost there. Hainu sha'achol hu tzimtzum liam, meaning to say the sand is a tzimtzum to the sea. How is the sand a tzimtzum to the sea? Shahamayim nigmarim b'hachol, the waters stop at the hole. The water stops at the seashore. V'hachol, and the sand, afshu namuch mehamayim shutachas hamayim, even though it's lower than the water because it's underneath the water and it's the avasha. Nevertheless, zosu yoter chazak mehayam. Nevertheless, even though it's lower, it's stronger. It has the capacity to rein in the intensity and the force and the annihilation associated with the sea. Why? Not because the sand has any koyach, not because it makes any sense, but because that's what HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants. Like the Rebbe said before in this line, meaning to say, even though the bittul elyon of choshech is above the or of the Yesod Da'atik, b'chol zeh heyoshe ikerhu lehiyos dav Hashem Yisparach, Efshar Raka Yidei Hagili, don't worry in Sof. The Tachlis is his kashrus to Hashem, and the only way to be Makosher to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is through the Giluyim and the secret of the Yesod Da'atik, and Mipnei Hashem writes Lehiskalis Daikab Or, because HaKadosh Baruch Hu wants to reveal himself by way of Or. And for that reason, the sand, the Yesod Da'atik, the conditionality of the Yosef orientation of Chachma B'chol Davar, and the need to apply wisdom and to live a structured, focused life for the sake of reaching what I want to reach, is stronger than the annihilation of the Malchus HaGeduza B'Radla, which are the waves of the sea. It's Yoter Chazak Mehayam. The sand is stronger than the sea. Mipnei Hashem asa choik oilam shachol yehei gvul layam. HaKadosh Baruch Hu has created a universal and perpetual law that the sand will be stronger than the sea. V'hachol hu b'soid hayesod da'atik. And the sand, the responsibility of being a person in this world, referred to as chol, with cholios shebeshedra and chalalim, nekavim, nekavim, and to live in a world of chol, that's the element of yesod da'atik, the patience necessary to reveal the light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu down here. That's the shorish of the or. That's the shorish of Mashiach ben Yosef. That's the shorish of the mitzvah of Talmud Torah. That's the shorish of the or, which is lamalam and hakol. Ukamosha ha'etz gadol melamata mehachol. Just as a tree grows from the bottom on the sand in the dirt, it implies that the shorish, even though it's lower, it is in truth the most fundamental part of it. Sha'achol hu b'chinas hasoif. The sand is the element of the end, just like the yasoid is the siyum degufa. It's the lowest part of the body, but nevertheless, it's the kiyum hagufa. V'afsha yasoidu lamata. But even though the whole and the sod and the responsibility of Yosef HaTzadik and that avoida of grasping light, of being mefaneach sunos, of trying, in spite of the fact that we know we don't even have to try from the perspective of David Malka Mashiach, even though the yesod is lamata, who's shoyresh ha'ilan, it is the root of the tree, shatachas ha'ilan, that's underneath the tree, shayoter chazak mikol ha'ilan, that's stronger than the entirety of the ilan, as Leshem Shabo V'Chaloma brings down in Sefer HaKlalim in the name of Rav Yosef Gaktalia in the Shari Oyer. V'chazinan mizeh, what we find from here is that av sheb'shoyresh hachi elyon, in the highest imaginable place, l'chayra hatzimtzum u'me'al gilei ha'or, perhaps it would seem that the simsum and the hasag of choshech and sitting and doing nothing, and the depth of the sea and the malchus, the genuza beradla, and that shirish of bina that brings me to a place of absolute intoxication of the mind, which leads to a choshech muchletes, even though the simsum seems to be higher than the light, even though the reish lo asyada seems to be higher than the yesod of atik, ach be'emes, nevertheless, in truth, al yedei ha'or ha'in soif, devukim ba'atzmus hamor. It's only through the revelation of a Kadosh Baruch Hu's infinite light, which is a Gilui, which is the aspect of Yosef Atzadik, which is the aspect of Yesod Atik, we have the capacity of being Makusha to the Atzmas or of the Ma'or, which is the element of David Malka Mashiach, which is the element of Choshech. So we have to attach ourselves to the Choshech, but it's specifically through the Or, through the Yesod Atik. If the Tachlis is to be Makusha to the Ma'or, to the Makusha to the infinite light of a Kadosh Baruch Hu, to be Makusha to that which cannot be ever grasped, to be Makusha to the mitzvah Maisios themselves, to be Makusha to David Malka Mashiach, the only way to get there is through Yosef Atzat. The only way to get there is through Mashiach ben Yosef. The only way to get there is through the Yisai Da'atik. Memela, if the Tachlis is to get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, and the only way to get to HaKadosh Baruch Hu is through the Avodah of Mashiach ben Yosef and the Avodah of Yigia and the Avodah of the Yisai Da'atik and the Choyel Hayam that places a limitation upon what we do and what we don't do in this world, then Memela, the derech to get to the destination becomes the destination itself, and that becomes the Tachlis. It's the Or. It's graspability, in spite of the fact that in truth I shouldn't try and grasp anything. Sha'afshat simsum al ha'or, even though the simsum is higher than the light. Mikol makam ha'or hu ha'ikr, the light is the essential thing. Sha'al yado nivdakim ba'atzmus hamatzil, specifically through that place that we come to connect to the essential light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, specifically by the inessential revelations of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. We love b'derech midoisav. U'lachein koyrim b'makoyim zeh la'or u'lachoshech sheshnehem shav b'shav. And therefore, we're referring to this place as the place of the unification between light and darkness, even though the Tachlis is always going to be more light to reveal a higher level of darkness, to come to more light. We refer to it as the equality of light and darkness, the complete equality of width and length, of application and source, which is the secret of Chochma and Bina. And from the words of the Gra and the Leshem, Mashma sheba'amkus soid zeh tluya kol ha'gu'uya hashlema she'atei berachamim gedolim daika b'mhira be'amenu amen. And according to the Gra, according to the Beis Medrash of Mashiach ben Yosef, according to the Avodah of Torah, for the sake of Maisa mitzvos, to be Megala, that it's only through the Chochma that we come to the Maila of Bina to reveal the Amkas of Keser, through the Yesod Da'atik that prevents the waves of the Malchus Gnuza Baradla from overtaking the need for the gradations and the particulars. So for the Gra and for the Leshem, it's hinted, says the Rabba, that this is Mamish, the place of Lav Yasin, it's the place of Geula Mamish. And now we'll come back to the end, to the beginning, to be mashlim this mimer about the Os Tzadi. V'nachsel inyan haterutz the hakushya al Os Tzadi the ha'arizal madua hu asua achor ba'achor shezel l'chira hamatziv the shvira of the loy hatikun. And now we can return to the kasha that we asked earlier with regards to the explanation of the Os Tzadi of the Arizal, which is achor ba'achor, where the yud is facing away from the nun. Why is it made in such a way that it reflects an ach ba'ach relationship, a relationship by way of disconnection, which theoretically l'chira points to a place of disorientation, disintegration, shattering rather than rectification and concealment. Yesh loymar, but we can say that on the highest level in the Partzufim of Atik, in the place of Keser Elyon, we see that there's an ach ba'ach relationship there also, because everything is revealed to be so connected. And so we're going to see how the disconnection is in fact revelatory of a higher level of connection. Yesh loymar, one can say the Atik, the Partzuf of Atik, the highest Partzuf, that place of Reish Lo Asyada, that yichud that we're talking about, Nikra Kula B'Bchinas Panim. It's referred to as completely being a panim. There's no achor there. Everything is revealing itself there. Every detail is revealing the essence of what it is. There's no separation between essence and detail. Everything is revealing itself. There's no concealment in that place of Atik, in that place of Ketzer. Even though in truth, when a person looks at the diagrams and the way that the Arizal sets up the binyan of the Partzufim, the way that the Partzuf of Atuk and the way that it operates with the Nukva of Atuk, everything has a Mashpia and a Makabel, is there Anpin and a Malchus, masculine and feminine, and therefore there's masculine and feminine within Atuk as well. And it's all referred to as Panim. Even that which is Achor, even that which is separate, is revealed to be Panim, because in that place it's so connected that you don't have to be connected in order to be connected. There's a revelation that even in disconnection there's connection. And in that place, even though the reality is that they relate to one another the same way that Zer Anpin and Nukva relate to one another. The parts of Atik and Nukta Atik have the same kind of positioning, and the back-to-back and the face-to-face and the face-to-back and the back-to-face that Zun has, which are the lower levels. They stand ach ba'ach, as the Nahar Shalom points out in Daf Zayin Amud Beis, based on the Arizal. So even though Atik Yoimin has this lofty level of being completely panim-oriented, completely connected, nevertheless, we see that in the reality of its description, it has a shape that actually operates within a sense of disconnection. Mishum Shakiyadua, because what we know is hayurei arei ayidezeh roim rak panim. When there's a back-to-back relationship between the masculine and the feminine, when you look at it from the outside, all you see is the panim. You see the panim of the nuk and you see the panim of the duch, because the ach ba'ach is taking place on the inside. So that really, in the lowest state, there's also the highest revelation, and in the highest revelation, there's the lowest state. U'kamol b'mashal ba'adam harishon echava, just like Adam Harishon and Chava, lifnation and Asru, before Hakadosh Baruch Hu surgically separated them and created the Nesira, hayu b'bechinas dvukim ach ba'ach. They were connected ach ba'ach. They were back to back. They shared the back. But nevertheless, ru'umi beis hatzdadim rak panim. But somebody looking from the outside would see the face of Adam and the face of Chava, even though they themselves couldn't see each other. V'chein atik, and so too when it comes to this high parts of atik, this place of Reish Lo Asyada, heyu shakuluhu b'vchinas panim. All we see is the panim, because it's this lofty level where all that is expressive is the panim of the panim Hashem Elokeichem, the revelation of HaKadosh Baruch Hu in a clear, clarified way, without constriction, without simsum. Hari b'chitzonius hu ki'ilu achor ba'achor. But externally, it appears to be operating in a back-to-back relationship, even though all we see is externally, it's in a state of disrepair. But internally, we're saying that it's the element of complete repair. Kebevur b'shar Shemos, as Arizal explains in Shar Shemos. In the Bechina Nosefes, Hareza b'Bechinas Yosef Atzadik, Shav Shekula b'Bechinas Panim, Hari Achiv Lo Hikirihu. On one level, this relationship of panim can apply to Yosef Atzadik, where even though Yosef Atzadik was revealing a true desire in the fact that, yeah, but MS Mashiach ben David needs Mashiach ben Yosef, because the Malchus of Gnuza Beradlo needs the Yesod Da'atik in order to tame its waves. And Yosef Atzadik, which is the Yesod Da'atik, also, even though the brothers didn't recognize him, they saw it as Ach Ba'ach, but they didn't recognize the Panim there. Shalamata in Mevinim es Yosef. Below, from the perspective of Malchus, they don't understand Yosef. They don't understand the model of Mashiach ben Yosef. That's Darchov. And Yosef and B'chinas Ach Ba'ach. In accordance to them, the constriction and limitation and the seriousness of Yosef Atzadik and the desire for Or seems to be an immature relationship, because what can you possibly grasp? HaKadosh Baruch Hu is infinite. We see this by other tzaddikim as well, that Chizkiyahu HaMelech went to sleep in the middle of the war, and HaKadosh Baruch Hu said, and he said to HaKadosh Baruch Hu, only you could do something. I'm going to sleep. There's nothing that I can do. That's the highest level of bittul. Everybody else saw that as something external. Somebody saw that as an ach ba'ach, even though in truth it was a panim b'panim. It was the deepest relationship. It was a relationship that was so deep that even the non-relationship was a relationship. Even the externality was revealed to be the pnimius. U'be'emes, and in truth, haisa avoidasa yoter gavoa mikol ha'avoida sheba'olam shebebechinas panim legamri shesamech legamri al rachme atik shel Hashem yisbarach. Even though externally it appeared that he was just going to sleep, nevertheless, b'pnimius, the sleep was a complete and utter reliance on HaKadosh Baruch Hu's racham and rabim that miskala through atik. So we see that atik has this quality that, in spite of the fact that it appears externally to be degraded, nevertheless, it is revelatory of this profound secret that even the degradation itself is indicative and reflective of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Because in this place of atik, it's so lofty that even that which appears to be separation is also seen and contained within the realm of connectivity. And that even those things which appear to be distance from the avodah of Hashem, which would be, why delve into the details if I can float within the general qualities, the particularities and the details of the Yesod Da'atik and the Shmira of the Shisha Sidra Mishnah and the Shmira Sahalacha and all of the avodah of the Yom Yom that is avodah of Mashiach ben Yosef, all of that is fundamentally important, even though it looks like ach ba'ach. But in truth, the avodah was much higher. And this is the inyan of the Ois Tzadi of the Arizal. Because the Ois Tzadi of the Arizal, Meramezes al Yosef HaTzadik, Shebevchinas HaTzadik Yesod Olam Shebemadrigas Atik, Shu Ki'ilu Ach Ba'ach, Ach Shekulo Or Ukulo Panim. The Tzadi of the Arizal represents the avoid of Yosef HaTzadik. It represents the necessity of operating in a place that appears to be ach ba'ach. It appears to be a focus on the Yesod Da'atik of it all. It appears to be focused on the need to engage in the particularity, which is the Chol Hayam, which appears to be far lower than the Gale Hayam. But nevertheless, even though it looks like ach ba'ach in relationship to Yehuda and the Shvatim, which is the perspective of David Malka Mashiach, which wants the Choshech of the Gale Hayam, nevertheless, from the true perspective of the Yesod Da'atik, which is the Chol Hayam, which is the need for HaChochma to tame the fiery waters of Bina that ascend up to Keser, instead of losing our minds, we dive deeper into the constriction of life. and that it's after reaching high up, we draw it all back down to halacha, that appears to be distant from another person. That appears to be an ach ba'ach relationship, something that is not connected to the highest light. But the Arizal is revealing that this is the Ois Tzadi. This is what it means, a tzaddik. The Ois Tzadi represents a tzaddik, and a tzaddik, the tzaddik of Yosef, a tzaddik, the Bechina of Mashiach ben Yosef, the Bechina of the Chachma, which even though it's lower than what Bina has the capacity of revealing, it continues to remain the fundamental expression because that's how HaKadosh Baruch Hu created the world. He wants us to reveal him in this world. He wants us to reveal him. Yes, Avada, sitting and doing absolutely nothing and contemplating the nothingness of it all and the impossibility of any grasp and the futility of it all is a reasonable option from the perspective of the Galei Hayam and the Malchus of Gnuza Bradla. But that's not the Metzias. The tzaddik of the Arizal is ach ba'ach. It's the necessity of descending down into those perhaps insignificant elements of spiritual experience, which is what a person typically finds to be the limiting elements of halacha, etc., and all of the minutia. Nevertheless, this is be'emes, the panim b'panim. This is the secret of the Yesod Da'atik, the Chol Hayam, which has the capacity of taming the Malchus of Gnuza Baradla. U'l'ksava Beis Yosef, but when it comes to the ksav of the Beis Yosef, those tzadi represents the panim ba'ach. We said the yud is turned to the nun, which was the third out of the four levels, which is the answer to the Chazon Ish's kasha of how could this level, the tzadi of the Beis Yosef, not be representative of the worlds in Kabbalah, but nevertheless, the Rebbe points out, no, it is, based on the Chazdei David and Oskuf Yud Dalet, it's representative of the third out of the four stages. The ois yud shala tzadi pniya la'achoria ois nun, that's the tzadi of the Beis Yosef, panim ba'ach, v'yesh lemer, shezem moira ala chitzonius keser da'atik, shu b'chinas keser da'arich, v'abir bazeh שהנה אויס צדי מוקרבי כניס כליל מאויס יוד מאויס נון כידוע הרי אויס יוד מויר על חוכמה ואויס נון מויר על מלכוס כדבר רבינו ז"ל בריש לקוטי מרן לפני שנש ימון שמוי יונן לשון מלכוס שלם תיקון שמצד אריך ושהיוד החוכמה תהיה בכינס פונים והנוק בכינס אריך אך. So the Rebbe is explaining now the Ois Tzadi of the Beis Yosef, which is Panim Ba'ach, and the Rebbe is hinting to the fact that this represents the Chitzonius HaKeser, which is Arich Anpin. And in the place of Arich Anpin, which is the Avodah of Bina, which is the Avodah of the Choshech, what we need to have is the Yud, which is the Chachma, and the Nun, which is the Malchus. We have to have the Shlemus of the Tikkun from the side of Arich, which is drawing down Chachma into Malchus itself. That the Avodah of Bina and the Avodah of being in that state of knowing that Choshech is the apex, is to be in a state of panim ba'ach, which is drawing down the necessity of chachma and bending the chachma towards malchus. That's going to be the tzadi of the Beis Yosef. V'hainu, and this is the final paragraph. Shebeina Beis Yosef v'beina Arizal. Whether it's the Beis Yosef tzadi or the Arizal tzadi. Medabrim ba'oisa b'china d'shleimus hatikun. We're speaking about what's going to be revealed in the culmination of the tikkun, where there's going to be the yichud of Mashiach ben Yosef and Mashiach ben David. Elisha Beis Yosef mitzad arich v'Arizal mitzad atik. Beis Yosef is speaking from the externality of Keser, from the level of Bina, and the Arizal is speaking from the interiority of Keser, which is the level of Chachma. And Atik and Arich, there's a fundamental inherent connection between Atik and Arich. Atik is the top part of Keser, and Arich is the lower part of Keser. Atik is the lowest level of the higher level, and Arich is the highest level of the next level. On the level of Atik, it's all Pnimius, which is the place of Or, and in Arich, it's the Bechina of Chitzonius, which reveals the perpetual renewal of things. היינו שיש שם בנוקת האריך איזה משהו חיסרון שבבחינס אח, כדי שעל ידי זה תהיה סחדשוס בכל רגע בסוד תיינוק שאינו תמיד שמחדש את התיינוק התמידי. Everything we've spoken about until now, the Rebbe is bringing down into these two shitos of the Ois Tzadi. That the Ois Tzadi of the Arizal is from the side of the Pnimis of Keser, which is Atik, which is the recognition that Yosef Atzadik has, that in the end of the day, the Tachlis is to be operating in the perspective of the Yesod Atik, and to be Machaber, Chochma, and Bina, and that in spite of the fact that Bina is higher, Chochma is always going to be the ultimate expression, that place of Kulo Panim, that place of illumination of the particular and the general. And then there's the tzadi of the Beis Yosef, which is the avodah of Arich, which is the place of bending the chokhmah into malchus, where there's still a sense of achorayim, where there's still a sense of work that needs to be done. In the realm of Atik, I'm already on the bus, as the Rebbe says. In the realm of Arich, I'm perpetually chasing the bus. In the realm of Keser, that's miyachid, the two of them, I'm doing both at the same time. I'm on the bus and I'm chasing the bus. I'm chasing the bus and I'm already on the bus. And that's the place of the Iker Yichud. But in the place of Arich, the tachlis of Arich is the ability to descend down into the kalim of his chachas to reveal the perpetual change within the perpetual renewal, which is the yichud of Chachma and Bina together. And that's the arich, which is the bechina of the chitzonius, that's megala the koyach of his chadshus. Hainu sheyesh sham benukta arich, in the aspect of the nukva of arich, there's a shiftability which doesn't apply by the nukva of atik, and there's an element of a chisaron, so to speak, which operates in the sense of an ach. And the only reason that there's going to be a deficiency or some element of a deficiency is that so that through this shal yidezeh tieh his chadshus b'chol rega, there's a renewal at every moment, because by dipping into the concealment, there's a need to renew the ascent afterwards. And the secret of the tainug she'eno tamidi, the perpetual renewal of a non-constant pleasure that is renewed in every moment within the constancy of pleasure itself. And this is the secret of the halachos of Torah, lo yisbatlu la'asalava. This is the secret that Yosef Tzaddik will always be nichlal within David Malka Mashiach. And there's always going to be a need between these two tzadis. And there's going to be a need between Chochma and Bina together. And there's going to be a need for halacha in the future as well, because there's always going to be a need for dipping down into the constriction of the Yesod Da'atik and the element of Yosef Tzaddik and the element of Chochma and the Or and the Hasaga, even though Be'emes, David Malka Mashiach and the Choshech and the Ihasag and the Bina that's Megala the Keser is a higher level. Nevertheless, the highest level is to reveal the perpetual unity between the two levels. And the halachas are not going to be misbatla asalavo when the secrets of Atik Yermin are revealed. Why? Because b'chol zeh tishayir b'chinas arich, there's always going to be the remnant of arich, of effort. Kedei sha'al yedei zeh tiyeh eschadshus timidis lo'ar hapashad b'chinas ataynu katamidi, that there's always going to be a renewal, a perpetual renewal of newness that operates within the unending, unchanging, unified simplicity of the perpetual pleasure that exists in the realm of Atik. It's specifically by dipping down into the particularities of Torah. When a person goes down from the Torah into the particulars of the mitzvah Maisa to reveal the Chochma Elikish Shebechol Davar, it's specifically there that we reveal the perpetual shift and the change and the responsibility of holding Chochma and Bina together, the klal and the prat, the length and the width. It's specifically through the constriction and the limitation of each and every halacha that's going to reveal the hischadshus atainu katmidi shel or ein soif sheyiskala b'chol ha'olam is taken from yad la'alter brachim amen sela. And it's specifically through the limitations of each and every halacha and the secret of Malchus and Yosef Tzaddik and Mashiach ben Yosef and the need to operate in the accordance with the desire to grasp something which is revealed as the Chol Hayam, which is more powerful than the sea itself, which represents the undying pleasure and undulating light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu at every moment. The descent down into the particularities and the minutiae of halacha and the particularities of the particularities is there to renew the pleasure perpetually of the revelation of the infinite light of HaKadosh Baruch Hu that is revealing itself in every ounce of concealment more and more. It should happen takef umiyad immediately now, alter already berachamim with the compassion of HaKadosh Baruch Hu, amen sela be'ezras Hashem.